Is Wednesday, September 27th. It is a meeting of the Los Angeles City Council. For those of you that are watching on Channel 35, you can also go to our website and listen. Mr. Clerk, if you could please call the roll.
Cardenas, Gruel, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Padilla, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Wesson, Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti. 10 members present and a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. If we could begin, we'll go through the agenda first, and then we will go to public comment.
First item would be approval of the minutes.
Ms. Perry moves, Mr. Smith seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Those have been approved.
On the regular agenda, item 1 are variance and zoning appeals notice for public hearing, and the applicant consents to a continuance to November 1st.
Those will be continued to November 1st.
Items 2 and 3 are public convenience and necessity items in Council District 13, and the recommendations are to grant the applications.
Seeing no dissent to that, we will open the roll on those items. Madam Clerk, please open the roll on those 2 items. Close the roll, tabulate the votes.
10 ayes.
Those items have been approved. Next order.
Items 4 through 27 are items for which public hearings have been held. Items 4 through 6 are the commission appointments. Do you wish to hold those on the desk?
We will hold those on the desk.
And on item 26, a community impact statement was submitted last night from the Woodland Hills Warner Center Neighborhood Council, and that has been circulated to all members.
Okay. Ms. Perry, did you want to call one special? I'm sorry, item 20. Ms. Perry will call item 20 special. Next, any other items that you'd like to, Mr. 11?
And Madam President, I do believe there was a request to call item 13 special for Council President Garcetti.
Item 13 called special by Garcetti. We do have cards on item number 7. Has that had a public hearing?
Public hearings have been held in this section, yes.
Okay, unless requested, those, there not be a public hearing. Okay. Any other specials, colleagues? Going through 27. I'm sorry? No more cards for the guards to be able to go to. Has item 26 had a public hearing as well?
Yes, it has, Madam President.
Okay. Does anyone, if not, call that item special if that's had a public hearing? Okay, Mr. Smith would like to call item 7 special. We are now through item 27. If I hear no other specials, Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
10 eyes.
Those items have been approved. Next items?
Items 28 through 51 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Do we have any items 28 through 51? Please hand if you have a card. I'm sorry? 49. Card will be submitted on 49. Any other specials, colleagues?
Moment.
42, okay. Cards. If not, no other through 51. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Excuse me? 26. Okay, that's already been called special.
No, we need to reconsider it.
We need to reconsider it because we did, okay. We'll go through the remainder of the items, and we'll come back to that. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
10 eyes.
Mr. Zine has asked that item number 26 be reconsidered. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
10 eyes.
That item is now called special. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Clerk?
Items 52 through 57 are the closed session items. Do you wish to hold those on the desk?
We will hold those on the desk.
That would take you back to either public comment or the items called special.
We will take public comment at this time. I'd ask the following individuals to please come to the podium. Christopher Fusco, Don Duncan, Valinda Jo Wright, and Mr. Hunt. Excuse me, before, I apologize, hold on one second. Yes, Mr. Reyes?
Forthwith, please.
16 forthwith, thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of City Council. My name is Don Duncan. I'm a resident of Los Angeles and the Southern California coordinator for Americans for Safe Access. Americans for Safe Access is the nation's largest medical cannabis advocacy campaign, representing as many as 30,000 medical cannabis patients, loved ones, doctors, scientists, and researchers. In the near future, this council is going to be considering regulations for medical cannabis dispensaries in our community. These are the organizations that provide medicine to those patients who are legally qualified to receive medical marijuana under Proposition 215 and in accordance with SB 420. Soon this council will take up the debate that cities and counties across the state have already engaged in, a debate about how best to regulate collectives and cooperatives of patients to protect the community interest and to protect the welfare of those patients. Many of you have already received our report, Medical Cannabis Dispensing Collectives and Local Regulation. Others of you will be receiving that today. This report is an important document that discusses the legal standing of collectives and cooperatives here in Los Angeles and the benefits of regulation. It's very important that this council realize that medical cannabis dispensing collectives are legal under state law and under case law, and that regulations are good for our community. They protect public safety, and it's important that we move forward quickly on those. We're very eager to help you in this effort, and we'd very much like to talk to you about the contents of the report and how we can move forward in our community to be sure there is safe access and that it's done in an orderly and lawful manner. So I will be delivering this to the remainder of your offices this afternoon, and very much look forward to talking to you about it more. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Duncan?
Good morning. I am a resident of the 2nd District of the great city of Los Angeles. My name is Chris Fusco, and I'm LA County Field Coordinator for Americans for Safe Access. Dispensing collectives are good for our communities because they provide a proper venue and a good means of addressing the concerns for most of the neighbors in our community. Also, most of the patients in our city just cannot grow their own medicine in a city like Los Angeles. And dispensing collectives give patients a well-lighted, secure, safe place where they can access their medicine in a quality-controlled environment. In many localities, complaints almost completely decreased or completely disappeared because they had enacted regulations. Mike Rotkin, who was the 5-term city council member and former mayor of the city of Santa Cruz, remarked that in 18 months since enacting the regulations, they haven't had one single complaint about the collectives. In fact, all of the people who were originally opposed to the collectives were now some of their biggest supporters because they had gained a means of addressing the concerns of the community. In Oakland, a formerly blighted area, was now revived because patients had come to become patrons of some of the surrounding businesses. They also were some of the safest areas in the city because of the security provided by the dispensaries. So I'd just like to remind you to remember that patients are members of your community when considering this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Don. Valinda Jo Wright, followed by Mr. Hunt.
Hello, how's everyone? I just came by to give this to, oh, you're here too? Hold on a second. I made a DVD for Councilman Rosenthal, and also I have something for the Secretary, well, the Transportation Committee head. Where you are? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hunt? Mr. Hunt?
Thank you. Good morning, City Council. What do I got to say this morning? My homeless programs, I do have the comprehension letter for what we're about ready to do and what we're about ready to kick off in the next month. And like I said, I need all of you guys' support. I will be giving you guys all letters within the next 2 hours regarding this program and the outline of this program. And it's going to be part of it's going to be funded by the County of Los Angeles and things like that. So I'm looking forward for all your support. And then the next thing is, Bill, we got to get the 4215 fixed. And that's it for me for right now.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Don Garza.
Good morning. Once again, I'm going to be here to speak on my neighborhood, which is Central City East, Skid Row. I live at 412 East 5th Street between San Julian Street and San Pedro Street. So far, you know, it's been going pretty good, but I noticed this morning that that the flexibility that was made was to move the containment zone from Main Street to Los Angeles Street to allow people to encamp between the hours of 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. And like I said, we're still concerned, those of us even the people on the street are concerned that the homeless, because 41.18D is going to be enforced all over the city 24/7, and even in Skid Row, but not between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m., that we're concerned that you're going to be herding more people into that area, which would make it more unsanitary and more prone to chaos and violence in the evenings. And we're concerned if the Safe Cities initiative is also going to include police enforcement in the evenings. Now, when homeless people become NIMBYs, there is a problem in policy. So I do agree that we need more police. The drug dealers still seem to be very upset. The users that come from outside the community are a bit confused as to where to go to buy their drugs. They come up to me, even me standing outside. Do I have weed? Do I have dope? Where do we go? And I noticed that these are the same people that have been coming from outside of the neighborhood that they're desperate. They don't know where to go anymore to get their weed. The other thing is I'm hoping I'm going to get a smoker soon. I know that between 9 and 6 they're not going to mess with us, and I'm hoping that they allow me to barbecue, smoke my meat next to my building 10 feet away from the door between 9 and 6. I hope that they don't enforce me actually cooking meat, so that's what I want to do too.
Thank you. Our next four speakers, Michael Carrion, Zuma Dog, Dr. Morris, followed by Deep South 81.
Yes, my name is Michael Carrion, and I'm a substance abuse counselor. And this weekend, this Saturday, we're having what's called the Olympics in Compton College. The Olympics is an organization of recovering addicts, alcoholics, who gather together in games, support. We have a 50-yard dash, 440, 100-yard dash, 440 relay. We have dominoes, checkers, volleyball. We barbecue. It's a large event at Compton College this Saturday from 8:30 to 5. If anybody is interested to see what people do once they get off of Skid Row, once they get off drugs and alcohol, there is a life after that. I spoke to Mr. Reyes earlier on some more personal issues in my community. Apparently, Superintendent Villaraigosa is so concerned about taking over the school board, he doesn't let the school board do anything, or he doesn't do anything about it. This board here, this sitting council, hands are tied according to them. For the past 2 months, I've been asking to get the Belmont High School cleaned. Yet, you can build, you can do anything you want, you can leave a mess, because the mayor does not have any contractors accountable for their actions. Same thing is happening at the Echo Park swimming pool. The contractors are building, making big bucks, but the community is suffering. Belmont High School also has the trucks going in and out, and nobody's cleaning up the dirt. There normally was a contract where they have to water down. Go through there, Mr. Reyes, the cars are filthy, and the contractors don't care. The community is the one who suffers through this. Remember, they took that property by eminent domain like they did the rest of the city. We fought tooth and nail, but we lost. Now we're being abused. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zumadog?
Yes, speaking of eminent domain, I'd like it to be said that California is the biggest abuser of eminent domain. It's supposed to be for things city needs, like if they have to build a school or public transportation. What's happening, eminent domain is being used to build things like food for less. It's just a way of stealing property from the property owners and then using it for commercial purposes. So, you know, let's take a real look at eminent domain. My name's Zumadog. I've been coming here for the past 6 months. You heard me talk about why LAUSD is bad, the mayoral takeover, unconstitutional. Now it will be battled in court, so I was on that one. Prop R, term limit extensions. I've been complaining for 3 months before anybody, the fact that they have 2 items mingled on 1 vote. So if you want to have ethics lobby reform put into, there's a ballot initiative R, Prop R. It's to extend council's terms to 3. They call it limits, okay? They say we're going to limit it to 3. Yeah, first after they raise it 1 to 3, then they're going to limit it, and they mingle this thing with ethics reform. So if you want yes on ethics reform, the only way to get it is if you also vote to extend council's terms an extra time, and then we all know that means a lifetime of health care benefits. So if you see the council members, please give them some vitamins, give them some wheatgrass juice. And I'd also like to say yesterday on the agenda there was the Jules Verne Film Festival special waivers. The problem with that is I heard on the radio tickets on sale at Ticketmaster, and it's sponsored by the Men's Warehouse. So I'd like to find out why we're picking up the tab for a Ticketmaster event sponsored by Men's Warehouse when it's supposed to go for non-commercial events. But now please pay attention. Proposition H, bond measure. It's bond money. We're going to take $1 billion that the city doesn't have, pay interest on it for the next 3 generations. The problem with these bonds, they wrap them up in things that sound good like affordable housing. Unfortunately, it's no checks and balances. The money's unaccounted for. You're taking $1 billion over 10 years, and you're just no accountability, and about 10% of it makes it to where it's going to go. If you vote for Bond H, you are a sucker.
Next speaker, Dr. Morris.
Good morning, President Pro Tempore. I want to talk about an environmental renewal plan. I had faxed this since I was in Florida to a couple council members. I was talking about repairing the bridges, the sewer, the roads, whatever. Just spend the money out there and create some jobs while improving the environment. I understand that this was a project and you were to raise bond money. But what I was recommending is that we could charge each vehicle about $10 a month to park on the streets and work something out with the parking meters. So instead of having to pay money in the bond, here's monies that will be coming in ad infinitum, and we could just renew America and make it, you know, new as it were. The people who are coming off of Skid Row, they could have found jobs here. Minorities could have started business in the various projects we're doing, and this could have been going on forever. Now, when you spend $1 billion here, with a multiply effect, you could generate about $20 billion worth of business. And of course, you know, taxes will be coming back into, going to other projects. Secondly, I noticed Culver City had a sewer spill. And it seems as though there's no way of dealing with it effectively. We pour it out in the sea and it's going to create problems. What I would recommend is that we have a variety of ways of disposing of our fecal matter. We could have fish eating it. We could have certain animals eating it. We could use some into fertilizer. What we could do is, pass it through some heat, kill the various bacteria and perhaps virus that's in it, and we could plow it into the desert here. Plant, vegetation, grass, weeds, whatever. And as Mr. Reyes was talking about, river plan, in which we wouldn't let all the water go to the sea. We could put some of the water out there, create a new environment, and make the climate a little better. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're now going to go out to the San Fernando Valley. Bruce Darien.
Yes, good morning, City Council. My name is Bruce Darien. I spoke yesterday about the port from an article on August 16th from the LA Times about a False Claims Act suit being dismissed. I got a call yesterday afternoon from Barbara Boxer's office, representative from there, wanting more information on the Malibu Pier scandal. And I'll read the first paragraph of the letter that was sent on July 28th to Senator Boxer, Senator Feinstein, Senator or Congressperson Lucille Roybal Allard, and Jane Harmon. Dear Senator Boxer, I am once again informing the Congress of the corrupt and fraudulent public contracting and subsequent cover-up of the criminal activities revolving around the Malibu Pier. This debacle has cost the taxpayers millions of dollars of false claims on the government by way of this corrupt project and the relationship to the fraud pertaining to substantial and illegal discharging to Malibu Creek and Los Angeles River. Malibu Creek is in the Santa Monica Mountain National Recreation Area, which drains directly to Malibu Beach and Malibu Pier. The water and fish are contaminated with high levels of toxins. As such, many people have become severely ill, and it is well documented. I photographed Malibu Beach on Labor Day weekend, where they had, the county had a no swimming sign on the beach over the weekend on a big holiday. I'm hoping that the public can send letters and write to Senator Boxer so we can get some more involvement from the community. You can read the entire letter at MalibuPierScandal.com. Also, the LA Times is refusing or has taken no action in correcting a letter or an article that was written on the California section of August 15th, where Malibu Pier, the rights to the name Malibu Pier is retained by the state. There's a lot of factually incorrect statements in that article, and I've requested that the Times correct it. As this time, nothing has been done. With the elections coming now, we can see that a lot of governmental officials...
Thank you, Mr. Darien.
Is my time up?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you very much.
Deep South 81.
Good morning, City Council. Deep South 81. I'm celebrating today because I'm number 6 with a bullet on YouTube this morning. Deep South 81, youtube.com. Look up on the screen right now. I've got a lesson for all the students here today. We've got a whole heap of them. In fact, we've got 2 lessons today. One is philosophy and the other one is history. Ethics. We've all seen the Adam Sandler movie, right, where the guy gets asked about ethics and he has to pull out a gun because he doesn't even know what they are. Well, we saw that here yesterday. But ethics is basically right from wrong, good from evil. And we saw some evil here yesterday when everyone was gone. There was a vote. And here's a great man, Ed Reyes. He got re-elected with 75% of the vote. Now that's a winning candidate right there, if I ever seen one. So if you get behind that guy and Tom LaBonge, I don't think you can help. I'm sorry, Greg, that was like I'm going to talk about why that came about. But Janice got all her points back. She's now going onto the even numbers side with Tom and Rosendahl because she stood up. You shouldn't have voted against that re-vote because that was allowed, right? But I'm glad you stood up for ethics. Speaking about history for all the kiddies and the older age students here, get your history teacher to tell you about Guy Gebelden. I read that he passed away recently. He was here for a presentation. Now there's a great American, a great local guy. Okay? So Guy Gebelden, get that history lesson because that's an important one. You don't want to be going against people who are in touch with their community. Because once you start enforcing things with control, the people start to go against you, and that's why you're not solving any of those crimes.
Next speaker is Arnold Salas.
Good morning, City Council. I'd just like to express my appreciation for being so politically correct after hearing the news that the County Board of Supervisors has managed to run Martin Luther King Hospital into the ground, and that nobody on the City Council has raised any kind of voice in protest about the way the situation was handled, except Supervisor Hahn. And the good news is the County Board of Supervisors is also in charge of the MTA, so we know what's going on with that situation. We know why, more or less, there is no completion of any transit line out to the, any rail line out to the beach areas, and it's something to look forward to how they run that. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. That closes public comment. Mr. Clerk, if we could reconsider item 46. Cards came in just moments after we had closed that. So if we could reconsider item 46, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
14 ayes.
Okay. That item will be called special. Yes.
I was up in committee until late. I would like to reconsider and call special item 27.
Item 27. Madam Clerk, open the roll for reconsideration. Close the roll, tabulate the votes.
14 ayes.
Be reconsidered, Ms. Hahn. If we could, first item.
Item 4 is the appointment of Ms. Latanya Slack to the El Pueblo de Los Angeles Historical Monument Authority.
Good morning. Please come forward and acknowledge Mr. LaBonge. You come have a seat, ma'am. Come to the...
Ms. Latoya Slack is an outstanding recommendation from Mayor Villaraigosa to serve on the El Pueblo Historical Monument Authority. And if you would just want to brief the council on your passion.
Thank you, Councilmember LaBonge. My name is Latanya Slack, and I'm currently a Senior Program Officer with the James Irvine Foundation, where I currently work to support organizations that are working to mobilize residents and their constituents to communicate more effectively with public officials. It's been one of my passions to work with community-based organizations throughout my career, and I'm excited to be a part of the commission. I appreciate the opportunity to work with the members of the El Pueblo Commission, and I hope to be able to put a lot of my skills and work with advocacy organizations to use with the commission issues that are coming up now. I understand that it's an exciting time for the commission in terms of some of the ideas that have been put forth and some of the new movements that are happening in the area, so I'm excited to be a part of that. Thank you.
Much. A strong recommendation for the committee. Mr. Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. President, and welcome. I'm really excited as a council member representing El Pueblo to have someone with your knowledge and expertise and background, and we won't say too loud that you also went to UCLA Law School like I did. There's a few SC fans around this horseshoe, but we'll, like you said, there's a lot of exciting things happening, a lot of history in that place, and being that it's the birthplace of the city of Los Angeles, I know we could make it better to really make it a destination point for people throughout the world. And so welcome, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Me also.
Thank you, Mr. Parks.
Standing next to you.
I just wanted to welcome Ms. Slack, who's an 8th District resident, to this commission, and certainly look forward to working with her. One of the things we talked about yesterday in hopes that from your position in the 8th District that we get an opportunity to expose a number of our young people to the downtown area and a number of activities. And unfortunately, as great as this city is, some of our young people may have never had a trip out of their community to know what Alvera Street is, to know what downtown LA is. So we're going to be enlisting your support to broaden the views of a number of young people in the 8th District and surrounding areas to become part of that cultural experience. And so thank you for coming forward. We really appreciate talking to you yesterday and look forward to working with you.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to be heard on the nomination? Again, we want to thank you for putting yourself forward for service. And with that, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Congratulations, Commissioner. Please give her a round of applause, everybody. Thank you. Our next nominee.
Item 5 is the appointment of Mr. Alberto Gutierrez to the Commission for Children, Youth, and Their Families.
All right, Mr. Gutierrez, welcome. I'd like to recognize again Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, members. This is another excellent recommendation from Mr. Villaraigosa. This nominee is a coach at San Fernando High School, an educator at San Fernando, which also has 2 members of this council are graduates of San Fernando, Mr. Cardenas, Mr. Padilla. So if you just express your passion, I'd appreciate it, and congratulations. We look for your good service to the children, youth, and families.
My name is Alberto Gutierrez. I've dedicated my entire adult life to working with youth. I started teaching 10 years ago. I worked with developmentally disabled adults and youth, and I was also a case manager for children, for pregnant and parents and teenagers. One of my objectives as a teacher is to get students involved with civic activities, and so I really look forward to being able to merge my teaching with this commission.
Mr. Labange?
Mr. President, one other thing, I know this is Emergency Preparedness Month, and an idea that I thought of and going to empower the coach and other coaches. We should train and involve with children, youth, and their families, expanding our CERT teams for community emergency response, because that's a big effort. And I know as a high school football coach, those young people, or if they're on the drill team or on the marching band, they're involved, and there's be a good opportunity to train them in the event of emergency. So we'll look forward to working with you on that.
Thank you.
Mr. Weezer.
Really happy and proud to stand up here to recognize and support a fellow paisano, as we say in Spanish. Actually, Mr. Gutierrez is from the small town in Mexico that I'm from, I just found out. So, but I'm really excited about you as well serving on this commission, given all that's happened this last year with the mayor and the city now being more involved in education. I think it presents some tremendous opportunities for this commission to get more involved in how the city and the school district will work together in partnership to improve the educational outcomes for the students. After all, we serve the same students. What begins an issue in the community does not begin or end at the doorsteps of the schools, and we could do a whole lot more to work a lot closer together. There's a lot of efforts underway, but you having worked at the school district, seeing these kids every day, I think you're going to be a valuable asset to this commission. I just want to welcome you, say congratulations, and I know that our folks back at home in the small town in Zacatecas are very proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members wishing to be heard? If not, let's open the roll on the nomination, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Congratulations, Commissioner. Round of applause as well for him. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 6 is the appointment of Ms. Nancy McClellan to the Board of Civil Service Commissioners.
Okay. And that came from which committee? It came out of Budget, Mr. Clerk?
This came out of the Personnel Committee.
Personnel. Excuse me, Mr. Zine. I'd like to recognize Mr. Zine and invite our nominee forward. She's here.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our nominee is not here. I met with the nominee. She's unavailable today. She is well qualified for this, Ms. Hahn, as your eyes rise to the ceiling. Ms. McClellan, to the Board of Civil Service Commissioners, nominated by the mayor, is a former intern with the City of Los Angeles, started with the Personnel Department. She was a student professional, and she went on to a law school and became a lawyer, and she worked for some premier law firms in the City of Los Angeles, handling labor law, administrative law, and she's well qualified. We had a lengthy conversation regarding her qualifications, her desire to come back to the city in this capacity as a commissioner on the Board of Civil Service Commissions. So I'd highly recommend her and commend the mayor for bringing her forward. Again, she started out many years ago. She's in her 20s, as a student professional, so well qualified. We'd recommend her appointment to the Civil Service Commission. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to be heard on this nomination? If not, let's open the roll. Let's close the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 eyes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item 7 was called special by Councilmember Smith.
Councilmember Smith, we have before us item number 7 now. Let's recognize you.
Yes, I call it special. We have 2 requests to speak, so I ask for a 4-minute public hearing.
Okay, is there any objection? If not, Mr. City Attorney, did you want to establish anything for the record?
Thank you, Mr. President and council members. As a reminder, this item is a fair hearing matter requiring the council members' attention to the speaker at the podium or at your monitor.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Zohar Eisenberg to come forward, and then Alana Anaya. 2 minutes, please. Zohar Eisenberg, welcome. You want to go the reverse order? Okay. Alana Anaya.
Hi, good morning. I'm Alana Anaya, and I'm counsel for A2Z Developers and Mr. Eisenberg. It has been a long road with a lot of time and resources utilized and wasted to be here before you. Not only were numerous fees paid by the petitioner for his appeal, but counsel was retained in order to prepare a very detailed brief with attached exhibits, which clearly lay out for you what has transpired in this very unfortunate situation. It strongly appears that no one has bothered to take the opportunity to review this brief with attached exhibits submitted to you several months ago. We had an expectation that the petitioner's appeal before the commissioners would be objective, but we were wrong. We followed all of the rules, took all of the misguided advice of the planning department every step of the way, but that was not what was required to receive support for this tract. We have come far from our original naivety and have learned what the process is all about. This petitioner had full support from Councilman Smith's office in District 12 when he purchased this property 2 years ago and asked for RS1 zoning. Petitioner at the time also had a business partner that is a well-liked developer. When District 12 learned that the well-liked developer was no longer on the project as a business partner, Deborah Winger from District 12's office blatantly stated in a face-to-face conversation with the petitioner that the support of District 12 is withdrawn and that this project would not go forward as requested. We were told by Ms. Winger right before this hearing today that we should not bother to speak because there will be no change in the decision, as it has already been made. We all know that corruption exists, but this was very overt, blatant, and despicable. We come here today to ask you to undo the damage that has transpired by granting the appeal and granting this petitioner what he was provided originally, which is RS1 zoning. And with that zoning, 7 lots can be feasibly constructed on this tract.
Thank you. Zohar Eisenberg, like to speak? You okay? All right. Mr. Eisenberg waves his card. Mr. Smith.
Just for the clarification, for those that are listening, we did not support the project when he first came forward. We never do that. I have never supported a project when it's brought in the door. We told him that it was within the realm of reasonability. He could go forward. Just for the record, the neighbor council was very vehemently opposed to the project. I did not support it when it went to the commission, and so for his saying that we've switched is not accurate or real. I'm sorry, I didn't want to speak on this, but I have to clarify the record. We never made any such proposal to them. And so just for the record, I support the Plum recommendation and ask the council approve the recommendation of the Plum Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any other members wishing to be heard on this item? If not, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item 11 was called special by Councilmember Parks.
Councilmember Parks.
Can we hold it just a second? We have a amending motion that's being put together, and it just is not finished right now.
Sure, we will hold that. And if I can ask Ms. Gruhl to switch out with me, I'm going to speak on this next item, number 13. That brings us next to item number 13. Okay.
I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Colleagues, you've all spent some time in these chambers listening to developments about a particular development in Hollywood, a little-known intersection called Hollywood and Vine in the heart of this city. And this morning, we had a press conference in front of Bernard Luggage, a small business that we worked very diligently to negotiate with and to incorporate into the project, and had wonderful news this morning that an agreement, after about 6 months of painstaking work, that my office and I personally were on the phone until sometimes 1:30 in the morning, day after day after day. We were able to work with the CRA, the developer, and this small business to keep that business there and to be part of the development that will actually be built around him and incorporates his building in, and a generations-old family business will be kept in there. It was a really wonderful announcement. Moving forward now, we'll be able to, by the end of the year, break ground on something that will be around $350 to $400 million, no more than $5 million, I believe, of city money in. But I wanted to just ask if staff might come forward. I believe there's a PowerPoint presentation on this, just very quickly to share with some of the members of the public. This is something that will put literally tens of millions of dollars, probably long-term hundreds, but in the shorter term, tens of millions of dollars into the city and agency coffers to be able to do not only redevelopment work, but police hiring, firefighting hiring at a very small investment, working with the MTA and the property that was there. It's exactly what we're talking about with transit-oriented development, having a Red Line subway stop right there with a new W Hotel, 250 living wage jobs, a Union Hotel next to some condominiums and over 300 apartments, 75 of which are affordable housing. It's really a model not only for the city but for the country. And I wanted to ask the CRA to just kind of walk us through it real quick and thank everybody for being a part, and especially Mr. Blue, a part of being patient in working to a solution that we were able to announce this morning. Please.
Good morning. My name is Isabel Rivero with the Community Redevelopment Agency. This project is located at the famous Hollywood and Vine intersection. The components of the project are projected on the screen. They include a 300-room W brand hotel, 150 condo residents, 375 for-rent apartments, 79 of which will be made available to families of low income. And it'll also feature over 60,000 square feet of retail space. The slide before you it depicts the existing conditions and the existing tenants. Most of the property is owned by the MTA. This is a joint development. MTA will retain ownership through a lease. They're going to lease the land out to the developer. We're going to be relocating approximately 22 businesses, most of which have relocated as of today. This is the proposed development. To the south of the site along Selma will be the Legacy Apartments, the for-rent component. In the slide, what shows up as red, it may be easier to see this way, are the W residents, the for-sale condo units, and the green along the bottom, Argyle, will be the hotel, which also fronts Hollywood Boulevard, and the MTA Red Line portal. This slide talks about the investment and the tax revenue to the city in terms of property tax, transient occupant tax, retail tax, business tax. In 30 years, as projected, this project will bring $260 million worth of tax revenue to the city. At present value, that is calculated at $89 million. There's numerous other community benefits that the project will bring to Hollywood. 250 permanent living wage jobs, a job training program, $500,000 towards the Hollywood High School endowment. Also a substantial art program, $4 million worth of public art. Before you is a view of the project taken along Vine Street looking south at the apartment component. This view is taken, it's a view northeast of the project, and it basically depicts the Vine and the Argyle elevations. And this view is of the project from the marquee of the Pantages Theater across the street on Hollywood Boulevard, and it depicts the entrance to the W Hotel and the Metro Rail Station.
Thank you very much, Isabel, and thank you to all the work of the CRA, to our developers, our city partners as well. This is one of the top, probably 5 developments in the last decade in Los Angeles in terms of absolute dollars, as well as also the innovative model that we've been able to bring together here. This is big news for the city today. Colleagues, I want to thank you for your continuing support on there. And I want to single out also Mr. Labange, without whom this wouldn't have been possible. He stepped up and helped pencil out some of it at the very end with some dollars that we share together in Hollywood, which he'll be reimbursed with, but it's a short-term loan that helped us get over the edge. I also wanted to thank the members of the community that really continued to back the support of this innovative benefits package. And I'll close with this. Hollywood and Vine is where the city's past and Hollywood's past comes directly into contact with our future. And it's a bright one indeed today, where we're able to preserve that piece of the past, Bernard Luggage, and the Taft Building, which is a beautiful part of that legacy, and then move very boldly into the future in a way that will benefit all parts of the city. And that's important for us all to remember. When we do good development, good public-private partnerships in individual neighborhoods, it benefits the whole city because of the tax revenue we bring in, the activity, people shopping back in Los Angeles, people living in Los Angeles, and hopefully we'll reduce pollution because it's right there on the subway line too. So thanks to everybody, and I appreciate your support on this today.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Mr. Smith, followed by Mr. Zine and Mr. Labange.
Thank you. I just wanted to commend Mr. Garcetti and Mr. Labange as well for their leadership. Hollywood was a place for a long time I wouldn't take my children to and I didn't want to go to. And the turnaround of Hollywood has really been remarkable. And it's a place now we can be proud of as a city. And I want to commend you on your leadership, particularly on this case because Bernard Luggage was a very ugly, contentious situation, and you resolved that in a amenable way that's best for everybody. And to counter some comments by Mr. Dowd, who's in the back. Mr. Dowd, would you listen to me for a change? I listen to you. Mr. Dowd? He won't listen. But he commented earlier about how Mr. Reyes got 75% of the vote. That's very laudable and something we all try to achieve. I want to just point out from Mr. Dowd's hearing that Mr. Garcetti got 100% of the vote when he ran for re-election because nobody ran against him because he's connected to the community, he listens, he works, and he's done a magnificent job in turning that community around. So congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Zine.
Well, my fellow member of the Valley wants to bring acknowledgement to you, Mr. Garcetti, Council President Tom Labange. I, too, didn't go to Hollywood for a long time. And if I did go there, I'd be armed just for my personal protection. It's a concern that it's changed. It's changed for the better. The activity in Hollywood now, day and night, is a whole new revealing concept of people coming together. The area that you've got on Sunset Boulevard, that's changed. Hollywood's changed. I know you've worked for at least 5 years to get this to fruition, and it's a compliment to you and also to you, Tom Labange. Hollywood's making a change, is making a turnabout. The activity that's taking place there now is all positive. People are happy. You're bringing in jobs, you're bringing construction, you're bringing in tax revenues to the city. So accolades to you, my good friend, because your dream has come true. And hopefully they'll start building that before the next couple of years. And it's long in need. And I remember as a kid going there with my mom shopping when they had the department store there at the southwest corner of Hollywood. I think it was a Broadway. And there was Bond's Clothiers on Hollywood Boulevard, and KFWB was on Hollywood Boulevard, and all those wonderful things that were on Hollywood Boulevard years and years ago, they've all gone away. It's coming through a new life because of what you've done. So your leadership is well recognized, and the people of Hollywood will benefit along with the people of Los Angeles. Congratulations.
Thank you. Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much. And members, it's really glory should go to those who worked the absolute hardest on this. And Mr. Garcetti, with the CRA and the work at Helmy Hekerish, who's the director. Mr. Garcetti, I thank you because this was a very challenging project, very large parcel, and it complements what is a turnaround on Hollywood Boulevard. And it also complements, which I like, is that you were able to figure out at 1 o'clock in the morning, I know you're a nightclubber, but the situation of Bernard's Luggage in that situation, because I do believe in when there's a challenge, you could get the ability to maybe put the old historic building into the project, and it will have new life to it. So all that together with your staffs that work so hard on it, I just want to thank you, and I was happy to help as we push it over the top, because what's good for all of Los Angeles, whether it's in the San Fernando Valley, out in the west end, Mr. Zine, where you were honored last year, as Canoga Park was given that special award for All-American City, and the work's being done throughout the San Fernando Valley, whether it's in North Hollywood or in the West Valley or Mid Valley, but Hollywood, how Hollywood is a tone to what people think about Los Angeles. And the truth is, to all of us here, if the business owners and Mr. Steve Allman, who is involved with the parking in the community, said, if we didn't create our bid and invest in it, then maybe people wouldn't believe the city would invest in it. So a lot of credit goes to those, but great credit goes to you and your leadership. Nice to see you, Ms. Heckerich. Thank you for your help on this here, too. Thank you, Madam President. Congratulations, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. I'd like to add my congratulations to you, Mr. Garcetti. This has not been an easy road, and you really have worked to bring consensus, and it is an exciting time in Hollywood. I was there on Friday afternoon, and it's just a great place to visit, and looking forward to its further kind of development there. So congratulations.
And just very briefly, we're joined by Homi Historic as well, who's the dynamic project administrator for the Hollywood and Central regions, regional administrator, excuse me. And she was a big part. I thank the entire staff as well, but I want to thank her, Ana Guerrero, Allison Becker from my staff too. Thank you all for your support.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, open the roll on this item, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
13 ayes.
Congratulations, Mr. Garcetti. Thank you. Forthwith. Next item.
Item 20 was called special by Councilmember Perry.
Ms. Perry.
Thank you. I'm going to find my notes. Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to rise to speak publicly about a very, very significant and dramatic history of this property and why I've chosen to get this building on the list of historic and cultural monuments. The architect on this property was Paul Williams, who was a native Angelino and was renowned for designing major buildings in the city, over 2,000 homes in Southern California. Many of those beautiful residences were in Hollywood, or are in Hollywood, and were designed by Mr. Williams. While Mr. Williams was orphaned when he was 4 years old and received little encouragement for his artistic talents, he enrolled in engineering school at the University of Southern California and won an architecture competition when he was 25 years old. At the age of 28, he opened his own professional practice. I didn't know that he had been a member of the City of Los Angeles Planning Commission in 1920 and was the first African-American member of the American Institute of Architects. In 1957, he was the first African-American elected to the prestigious AIA College of Fellows. He has designed three very important buildings in Council District 9, the Second Baptist Church, the Angelus Funeral Home, and the 28th Street YMCA. The facade has images carved of Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass. He was also the first African-American to design a major public building in the city, a unit of the Los Angeles General Hospital that opened in 1945. Currently, Angelus Funeral Home is being rehabilitated by the Community Enhancement Corporation. It will be used as a child care center, adult education center, and community health clinic. So this is a very important action today to declare the 28th Street Y a historic building, and I believe that Mr. Williams and his work deserve to be honored, and I ask for your support.
Thank you very much, Ms. Perry. Madam Clerk, if you could open the roll on that item, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
13 ayes.
That item's been approved. Next item.
Item 26 was called special by Councilmember Zine, and an amending motion has been circulated.
Thank you. Mr. Zine, we do have obviously a number of cards.
Yes.
How would you
if we
like
could
to
hear
handle that?
from the folks that are here and have appropriate amount of time. I don't know how many cards you received, but whatever be appropriate amount of time for the public to have comments, and then we can discuss the matter. I think the zoning administrator's here also.
It's about 20 cards, approximately 20.
11, 10. Do you want to do it for 20 minutes?
20 minutes, we'll stick to that 20 minutes.
And let's just give them a minute to make their comments.
Okay.
And if some want to consolidate their comments, we can do that. So 20 minutes for the public comment period.
Great.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Madam President. And as a reminder to council members, this item is a fair hearing matter requiring the council members' attention to the speaker or to the speaker speaking or the transmission on your monitor.
Thank you. I'll call 4 names at a time. Donna Shule, Susan Klenner, Mohammed Tat, I think it is, and Charles Salverson. If you could please come to the front.
My name is Donna Shealy. I am the acting president of the Walnut Acres Neighborhood Association, where Ivy Academia is located. Our organization is only 3 months old, but we have over 200 members. The campus is currently over nearly 40% over-enrolled and has been cited by the fire marshal for unsafe use of a room as a classroom. We ask that the council require the school to comply immediately with the enrollment limit set forth in the CUP. This over-enrollment increases the traffic and noise impacts on the neighborhood at a time when the school is already in violation of traffic and noise limits in the CUP. The enrollment puts all children on campus at risk of a fire disaster, while the current over-enrollment curing the over-enrollment would bring the school into compliance with fire safety requirements, and the over-enrollment benefits one person only, the proprietor of the school, with regard to the per pupil amount that he receives per student. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Klenner. And if we could ask Mohammed, everyone to line up those names that I've called thus far.
Good morning. I'm Susan Klenner. I'm the acting secretary of the Walnut Acres Neighborhood Association. The association voted unanimously to support the appellants and oppose the extension of the Ivy Academia conditional use permit in this matter. But first, we're here to discuss ethical and legal lapses of the proprietors of the school. And consequently, we think the presence of the children in the chamber might impede a full and open discussion. So we would ask that they leave during the discussion of this matter and then resume their field trip afterward. So to continue, in addition to many letters, an emergency petition was produced with 70 signatures gathered in only 3 days, widely dispersed through our neighborhood. And in that petition, we ask that the council revoke or not extend the CUP. Thank you very much.
Mohammed, followed by Charles Salverson and Betty Salverson.
Hi, my name is Mohammed Tat, and I'm living on Fallbrook, the closest neighbor to the school Academy for Kids. The school has been in violation of all the conditions that have been set under which the school is supposed to operate. They have been violating all these conditions all these years, and the city apparently preferred to turn a blind eye on all these violations and not to force them to follow those rules. If the current situation persists, I have no choice but to sell my house and live to another place, knowing that no buyers would pay the fair amount of money for the house that is exposed to the kind of noise that we are exposed now. Me and my family are going to be losing substantial sum of money in selling my house. The school has always violated, and anytime they have been asked to answer questions, they have brought kids to the place to hide behind them and justify their unethical behavior. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles Salverson, followed by Betty Salverson, August Durer, and Gordon Murley.
Yes, my name is Charles Salverson. The problem started in February of 1996 and has gotten progressively worse, and there are 14 conditions that's supposed to be met with their conditional use permit. 27 of those are still outstanding, no effort to enforce them, and it's getting very tiresome to going all this time without some enforcement of these conditions. The major ones are the noise, 70 to 73 decibels in my driveway, can't keep my garage or door open because of the noise in the summertime, and then the hours of play are in violation, and every time you turn around, there's a flagrant violation of all the conditions with no hope of solving it. Thank you.
Thank you. Betty Salverson?
Good morning. My husband and I have appealed this. Our neighborhood has been abused for 10 and a half years. We are seniors. It has affected our daily life. Can't know of any conditions that have ever been fulfilled, even to initially operate. Can't tell you how many hearings, letters, phone calls have been carried out. These people only operate for their own gain. We love kids too, have 3 great-grandchildren. Don't use them as a front. Thank you.
Thank you. August?
Good morning, council members. I'm August Stoyer, here on behalf of the Woodland Hills Warner Center Neighborhood Council. I'm vice chair. I encourage you to revoke the CUP for this location. This location has been a continuing problem before the Neighborhood Council. There's no entity that has been the source of more complaints in the history of the Woodland Hills Warner Center Neighborhood Council. No entity has made more promises to comply and then ignore the promises. They are gaming the system. It's time to enforce the codes and conditions. Extending the CUP and increasing the allowed enrollment sends the wrong message to the community of Woodland Hills, that it's acceptable to abuse neighbors and to ignore the conditions of use imposed because they will never be enforced. The Woodland Hills community wants you to stand up and enforce the rules. Otherwise, the neighborhood council, the city council, building and standards means nothing.
Thank you very much. Gordon Murley?
Yes, Gordon Murley, President of the Woodland Hills Homeowners Organization. This has been a continued problem throughout the city. A conditional use has conditions and should be honored. At no time has this institution ever attempted to or cared to adhere to the conditions set forth to operate. As has been said before, they know how the system works, so they appeal everything and then do what they want until they have to come up again. More conditions have been put on. They go back and appeal it. So for 10 years, they have had a free rein. There's no reason for a conditional use to be given to anyone and then allow them to ignore it continually in spite of what has gone forth. The council member of this district has bent over backwards trying to work with this group. Everybody has tried to work with this group, and their attitude has merely been, it's for the children, and we don't have to obey what you told us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murley. We do have several cards from the Ivy Academy, but we will not be able to hear from all of them. So if there are individuals that you would like to make sure speak, please have them come forward. Otherwise, I will go with the list as they were put forward to me here. So our first speaker is Eugene Selovanoff. And I appreciate the clapping for him, but I think that will limit your time, so please.
I understand that. Can we distribute to the council members while we talk? Sorry, thank you. My name is Eugene Slivanov. I'm Executive Director of Ivy Academy Charter School, top performing independent charter schools in the LAUSD for 2 years in a row. You hear a lot of things today in terms of that school is not complying with the conditional use permit. I pass you the folders. They'll show you pictures of the school and show you that original zoning administrator actually stated we're complying with all the condition, we're just making too much noise. You also have here order to comply. The list conditions, some of them are flock are not being displayed, trash is not being picked up before 7 a.m. We address all these conditions. We're trying to be a good neighbor. We want to be a good neighbor, and we hope that this council can see that we are complying with the conditions, and we benefiting the large population of students that are, a lot of them are here. I just want to, on the last second, just acknowledge everybody that are here. If everybody can stand up for a second so council member can see the support that the school has.
Thank you. The next speaker I had was Jerry Simmons.
Madam President and members of the council, my name is Jerry Simmons from Spectrum Middleton Young and Minnie. We are legal counsel for the charter school as well as 2/3 of California's charter schools. I wanted to point out just a couple items. One is that to the best of our knowledge, there's been no opportunity for the school to respond to the allegations raised by the neighbors. I understand that they have raised these points at the Plum Committee and also here before you today, but I have not seen any proof of these allegations. Secondly, that education is a fundamental right here in the state of California, and your actions must be narrowly tailored to protect public health and safety. What the charter school is asking for today is that you accept the Plum Committee's recommendation to approve the increase in enrollment of 40 students, because otherwise these students will be literally put out on the street in the middle of the school year, and that is a big problem. The charter school does not have any legal authorization to disenroll students, and so we're asking for your assistance with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. David Carradine?
Yes, well, I'm here really on behalf of my own children who are attending Ivy Academia. I have 3 at the large facility, and I have a great grandchild who is at the Fallbrook facility, which is the one that's, that we seem to have a problem with. My granddaughter went to a great deal of trouble to relocate herself to Canova Park so that her child could go there. The other 40 children who are over, I mean, I'm not really, you know, I don't know all of this stuff and everything, but as I understand it, 40 of these children are actually there only half a day. The kindergarten is a half-day program. And there are 2 classes, 4 classes, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. So there actually may not be any more than 114 kids in the school at any one time. I'm not sure about that. But the thing is I'm over. I'm sorry about that.
If you just conclude, thank you.
If these 40 kids are thrown out of school right now, it's going to be a huge crisis for them and for their parents. And I just like...
Thank you. Thank you
I
very
have
much.
more to say, but I guess I can't. So thanks.
You have some people behind you. Thank you very much. Are you our next speaker? Because otherwise I'll go continue on the cards.
My name is Stephen Thompson. I'm a 6th grade teacher at Ivy Academia, and we stand here today deciding the destiny and the future of our country. If you look back throughout the years in history, 1966, 86, 2006, and 2026, you will see that the nation radically changes every 20 years. We have things here today that we did not have in the past. Our own mayor has said himself that the dramatically improving student achievement and graduation rates is the goal. The elimination of achievement gaps is of urgent necessary, and Ivy Academia has done that for 2 years with scores of 854 both years. We are succeeding in education, and it is upon us to stop these 36 conditions that impede the progress of young minds, and that we should join together as a community, that because upon the education of people in this country, the fate of our country depends. And that is what we are here today to decide, that our children will be educated in the most radical and greatest way, so that our future of our country will be a great country. That is why the CUP must be extended.
And just state your names for the record, please.
Sarah, Sophie, and Sabina.
I'm sorry, Sarah, Sophie, and
Sabina. Good morning, LA City Council. Good morning, LA City Council. As you know, we are from Ivy Academia Charter School. We have been attending Ivy since 2004. We are here to support our Fallbrook site. Our school is very organized. We are learning how to become future entrepreneurs. We think that entrepreneurship is very important for young children to learn.
If you have not been to our Fallbrook site, it is the perfect environment for young children. It is very important to us and our fellow students at Ivy that our Fallbrook site remains open. Please consider that Ivy is different from any other school and has a very big influence on children's future.
I'm honored to say that Ivy Academia has and will continue to be a great experience. Yes, there are times we have our ups and downs throughout the school year, but no one can replace the memories we all have been through together. from field trips to the church, and from hotels to our second home, where we have wonderful teachers to run for advice, the administration and staff who support us, and our fellow classmates who are always there to listen. Without them, we would be nothing. Our school may not be so big, but after all, our heart and the support for Ivy is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to add, these kids put their speeches together by themselves. My name is Tatiana Berkovich. I'm the founder and president of Ivy Academia Charter School. What you received in this folder, and if I can ask you to open it, you will see photos of our site. So that you could see what kind of improvements we've made. Being not a good neighbor, a person who doesn't want to be a good neighbor doesn't spend over $250,000 worth of improvements. That on top of the things that we've tried to do with the neighbors, trying to meet with them, trying to invite them to come to our school, be part of it. They've never invited us to their neighborhood council meetings. They've never invited us to say, hey, you know what, this is the concern that we have. Let's talk together. Let's figure this out. We also have in this package a handwritten letter from the John Perrica, zoning administrator, that specifically says the only real issue seems to be noise impact on your western neighbor. And can you think of ways to reduce or eliminate the outdoor play noise? And that's what we try to do. We try to let the kids know before they go outside, please be cautious of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jill Haberman. Councilman Zine and City Council, I'm a parent at Ivy Academia for 2 years and cannot believe that you would have the heart to listen to a group of disgruntled parents and neighbors and the parents who are no longer with our school. As we started this school year, all of the returning families could not wait for school to open, and the children were even more excited. The gym and classrooms that were promised were being completed, and the programs being offered this year were going to be more fun and more exciting than ever before or any school that surrounded our area. Now that we are 3 weeks into the school year, I have to share with you that my son could not be happier. In fact, each and every child that attends Ivy is so happy that it only shows in the programs and environment in our school are working. The classes are small and the learning environment exceeds any parent's expectations. After watching the program on television 2 weeks ago regarding the LAUSD versus the Green Dot charter schools, I personally would never, ever send my child to an LAUSD school again. Studies, as well as our school's test scores, show that smaller class sizes...
If you just conclude your last sentence.
I'm done?
Sorry, yes, if you want to say your last sentence, you can go ahead and do your last sentence.
Council Member Zine, I hope that you will have a change of heart in your support of Ivy's Fallbrook campus, which lays the groundwork for the future of our city and our nation. For you to displace so few children at this time in the school year would only put all of them in a serious crisis.
Our next, go ahead.
Crystal Bradley. My name is Crystal Bradley.
You were the next one on my card. Thank you.
Got it? Oh, perfect. I am also a parent at Ivy Academia, and I just wanted you to know that I'm not unsympathetic to the plight of living next door to a school. I understand what they're talking about. I live next door to Birmingham High School, Mulholland Middle School, and Valley Alternative Magnet School. And I dare say I know what children yelling and laughing and playing sound like. I was recently passed by a bullet that hit a 16-year-old boy from our school and killed him. I dare say that these neighbors won't have to bear the burden I do living next to these LAUSD schools. If it's merely noise that is the worry, I also know what it is to hear loud sounds. Airplanes overhead, both day and night from Van Nuys Airport. We have a loud street traffic on Balboa. I live very near the 405. It's loud to live in a metropolitan area such as Los Angeles. We're big. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly Statler.
I'm sorry?
Kelly Statler.
Okay. And the next person would be Scott, the last person after you would be Scott Austin Probert.
Okay. I work at Ivy Academia. I work on the Fallbrook site. I am the person that's out there every day with these children. I do everything I can possibly to keep the noise level down as low as possible. I've got kids out there that I am telling they cannot scream, they cannot run and play, they can't kick balls because if they go over the fence, we lose them. We are only allowed out there 3 hours a day. We are doing everything we possibly can to make sure these children are only out there 3 hours every day. And I mean, I just want to let you know that I'm the one that's there with them every day, and I do what it takes to keep these kids quieted down. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Scott Austin Covert.
Hello. Hello, my name is Scotty Probert, and today I will discuss why Ivy Academia's Fallbrook Avenue location should be allowed to operate as it currently is. Ivy Academia's Fallbrook Avenue location originally began as a school academy for kids. Over a period of time, though, Academy for Kids became Ivy's Fallbrook location. This location has become fully devoted to giving the best education to its students. The preschoolers, kindergartners, and first graders, which attend the school, participate in over-the-top activities or academic activities every day. The students who attend this location perform better than students at other schools and become more influenced for experiencing the real world when they grow up due to Ivy's well-constructed entrepreneurial education program. You may not know, but Ivy is one of many schools to operate at this Fallbrook location. The several other schools that utilize this same location also produce the same amount or more noise. Living in a house by any elementary school places the homeowner in a position of experiencing the normal volume of noise produced by an elementary school. The children who attend this Ivy are extremely intelligent and kind-hearted and try their best every day to not be so loud. But frankly, all schools with young children are loud. Thank you very much for your cooperation today, City Hall and other viewers, and I hope you consider my speech accurate.
Thank you very much. I'd like to read for the record the following individuals: Sabrina Mustafayeva, John Paul Herrera, Dr. Morris, Zumadog, and Deep South 81, who were here as well to testify on that item. I'd like to call on Mr. Zine.
And to the students, welcome to a civics class at the Los Angeles City Council, students from the school. This is part of my district, and I am totally supportive of education. I am totally supportive of education, the public sector, the private sector, and charter schools. My district encompasses 275,000 residents, and I have a number of public and private schools and charter schools in my district. And I will say that we support all of education in the district and along with my colleagues. The concern is a conditional use permit. There have to be regulations. Ivy Academia is in an area surrounded by residents. When a conditional use permit, which is an authority to operate a school or any other business, conditions are imposed upon that. For example, if you have a liquor store, it says you must have a security guard, you must have lighting, you must close at a certain hour. Those are conditions imposed, conditional use permit. What we have at this school is conditions that have been imposed. This goes back to 1996, when a residential home was transformed into 70 children preschool daycare. 1996. 2001, the current operators took over the facility, and a conditional use permit was granted to the school in 2001, and stating you could only have 114 students. That's the condition because of traffic, because of neighborhood, because of a variety of factors. That's the condition imposed upon the school, 114 students. If the school complies with the regulation, if the school complies with all of the conditional use permits, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be discussing this. But when the school or any business doesn't cooperate, doesn't comply with the conditions, then we have the problem. We have the community get upset, protests are filed, and here we are. If the school put in 200 students or 250 or 300 students or whatever the number be, the fact is a conditional use permit limits the number of students that can attend or what a business can operate. That's why a conditional use permit is so important, so we can maintain a sense of balance between the residential area and the school or any other business. So when we look at the school, I am not against Ivy Academia. I'm not stating that it's a bad school. I'm not saying the scores are not appropriate. What I'm saying is that the environment around that school, the residents around that school, have an idea of a quality of life and have a right to have a quality of life, and the traffic that's affected and all of the other conditions that affect that community are part and parcel of why we're here. When we talk about 114 students, I didn't say increase it to 154 or 156. The school, for whatever reason, accepted more students than it was permitted to do under the conditional use permit. What if the school had said we want to have 200 students? So what use is the conditional use permit if it's not going to be applied to and it's not going to be followed by the people who agreed to that? Limitation on outdoor play so not to create unreasonable disturbance in the community. This school is surrounded by residents, and there are people in that area that have a right to have quiet. And I know that a school with children create noise. But there's reasonableness when we talk about the hours that they can be in the yard. Increase carpool to cut down traffic. It's on Fallbrook. Fallbrook is a major thoroughfare. When you have 114 parents dropping off students versus 154, you've got increased traffic. When it comes to the summer school, certain conditions are imposed, and all we're asking for, when the school agrees to those conditions, and the city abides by those conditions, to follow those conditions. And when those conditions are not followed, which has been the case, and that's why we see the neighbors here, no one's saying that the students aren't good. No one's saying that Ivy's a bad school. What they're saying is the school must comply with the regulations from the homeowners association, from the neighborhood council, and from the neighbors. That's what it's about. And I will be very candid by saying of all the schools in my district, this is the first school that we've had a problem with where the neighbors have come out stating that there's no compliance with the conditional use permit, which we must adhere to if we're going to have any semblance of order. So when we're talking about 154 students, that is in excess of the 114 by a total of 40. That means 40 more cars, 40 more parents dropping off students. All I'm saying is that we need to have compliance. Ivy has another site, and I helped get that site on DeSoto Avenue. There was some problem with that when we were going forward with that. There was another site on DeSoto, run by the same operators. There was sufficient space, and I've been to that site, and the plan was that that site would accommodate all of the students because it's in an industrial area, it's on DeSoto Avenue, and it's a more appropriate site where noise isn't going to be a factor, where the issues that are affecting this neighborhood won't be a factor because it's an industrial area, it's a commercial area on DeSoto near the Ventura Freeway. And I honestly thought the plan was to move all the students into that site and to utilize the Fallbrook facility for something else, and the students would take over in the site on DeSoto where there, again, is sufficient room. All we're asking for is to support the Plum recommendation and amend that Plum recommendation. Amend that, the ZA review date to be no later than February 28th, and amend the enrollment cap to what was originally agreed to of 114. I don't want to see students displaced, but I also want to see compliance. And there is a recourse. There is a recourse where students could be transferred over to the DeSoto site for continuing education. And if we need to increase the enrollment at the DeSoto site, we have a hearing regarding that. But it's a more appropriate site for the school than its current site on Fallbrook. And I've heard from the students, and I commend the students for your discipline. I know it's a long ride from the San Fernando Valley on the bus, and the discipline that you have here. This is a class in civics. It's a class in how government runs and how a community can be heard and how the elected officials can respond to that to make a semblance of order. Over-enrollment at the school is the big problem that has to be resolved. The traffic problems will be mitigated when the enrollment is at 114. Violations at the school. Do we have the zoning administrator here? If you'll please come forward. There's been concern about violations over a period of time, and I know that there's been appellants that have come forward. There's been hearings that have gone. This has gone to the Plum Committee. There's been a long situation where CUP is granted, and then follow CUP is granted. There's violations, and it goes back and forth like a ping pong ball. I'd like you to explain some of the conditional use violations that have taken place and how we get compliance and what we need to do to have this neighborhood have a sense of order and have the school operate where everyone's in agreement, where we can come together and blend it together.
Lynn Wyatt, Office of Zoning Administration. I was the Associate Zoning Administrator of record on the case. There were other previous zoning administrators through the period that this has been before the Planning Department. Zoning Administrator Parika previously did the plan approvals as well as the original conditional use permit that was issued back in 1996 through up to the 2004 period. During that time, Mr. Parika kept of record a number of letters which essentially were sent to the applicant establishing their violation on conditions. That occurred from essentially 2004, the beginning of 2004 in April, when the permit was first issued, up until the time when they were required to bring in a plan approval request in 2005.
Now, when those conditions of violation were brought forward, was there any improvement? Was there any correction of those violations?
No. And in fact, ultimately, the applicant did not show any evidence that they had established any sort of response to Mr. Parika in accord with the conditions. There were still problems in association with noise, parking, access to the property, the number of students, the hours of use. All of those things are all identified within the record.
So in other words, the conditional use permit was not utilized by the school, and violations were brought to the school's attention, and they did not comply with the warnings that were brought to their attention by the violations.
Correct. Ultimately, the action that was before me was a plan approval, again, to see the efficacy of the conditions and whether or not they were in compliance, and my determination showed that they were still only in partial compliance, that there were outstanding issues.
And what issues, other than the cap, the 114 is the cap for a variety of reasons, for the environmental issues. If they were to go to 200 versus the current 154 or 300, if they went to a number that is in excess of what is granted in the conditional use permit, what recourse does the neighborhood have because of the associated factors of traffic, noise, et cetera?
Well, essentially what's before you today is the plan approval compliance of conditions request. And so to the extent that we modify those conditions to accommodate and respond to some of the impacts that have been identified by the neighborhood, that's available to you and was available to me at the time of my review. I've modified them to some degree, and to the extent that you have others that you want to entertain in response, you can do so. It also involves the time period in which the applicant has the ability to maintain the use on the site. At this point in time, the condition now reads that they would terminate use of the facility in August of 2007, and that was the modification I made. The original condition essentially established 2 years from the effective date of the April 2004 determination, so that they would have had to discontinue activities on the school or at least refile for conditional use at that time.
And the purpose of that was to give an opportunity for another location, which they currently have on DeSoto. Were you involved in that hearing on the DeSoto site?
And before she answers just real quick, Mr. Zine, we'll ask you to push your button again. We've gone over your time a bit, and then we'll come back to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please go ahead and
There'll be
answer
more
the question.
questions. Thank you.
Okay. She can answer the question.
I was not involved in the DeSoto site determination, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Mr. Huizar, followed by Mr. Reyes and Ms. Hunt.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I actually chaired Plum on the day when this item came up, along the other member present with Councilmember Weiss. And we decided to deny the appeals. There were actually two appeals. One appeal was by the owner of the school, the operator of the school, and the other appeal was by the local residents. We made one change at that committee meeting. I asked the school, I said, you know, we have a great academic program here. High-performing test results are doing good. You guys are doing something right. But within that, are there any conditions here that will affect your ability to continue providing these kids with a good education? And they pointed out one thing they couldn't live with. They said the 40 students. They were concerned that if we lower the number of students, there was a concern about where would these students go. And I think the committee felt at that time that we would not want to disrupt the students' education midway through the year. So although they went above their cap and allowed 40 more students, the committee felt that it would not want to disrupt the students' education midway through the year, and that's why one of the changes the committee made was we denied the appeals, but with the amendment to allow the 40 additional students to continue attending the school. There was also mentioned that with the additional conditions, as implemented by the zoning administrator, times that the students could be out in the playground, how many students could be out in the playground, those will mitigate the additional 40 students that were at the campus. That was the sense of what the committee and what they came out with. I just wanted to put that out there and report from the committee.
Thank you. Mr. Reyes?
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank Councilmember Huizar for chairing the meeting on that day. I chaired the first time they came before Plum in the recent past. At that time, I could sense the frustration from the staff in that we were providing the type of flexibility to continue the school, and that we were sending letters, we were asking administrators to comply with the law, and that the law was being ignored. So as teachers, we ask ourselves, we tell a student, this is a rule to conduct the class, they choose not to follow the rule, there's a reaction. I think today's reaction is one in which we're showing some compassion in trying to address the needs of the 40 students. I believe the amendment by Councilmember Zine is establishing yet again more flexibility, while paying attention to the property owners and the neighborhood stakeholders. So if I get this correctly, on the second directive on the moving clause of the motion, the enrollment at the school be limited to 114 students that the Ivy Academia Charter School provide in their November 06 application for review of the conditions of approval evidence that they are in the process of finding an alternative site for the 40 students being relocated, and furthermore, provide at the February 07 hearing evidence that they relocated the students. So there, I believe, is a level of compromise, trying to reach a neutral ground. We're not trying to hurt the students. We want you to get your education. But the administrators who are making the decisions to increase the enrollment, despite the fact that they know they are breaking the law, should also be held accountable. So let's understand the balance here. So I'm trying to get to a point where we don't hurt the students, but let's hold those decision makers in the school accountable for ignoring the law. And I believe that's what Dennis is trying to do.
Ms. Hahn, followed by Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I want to commend the students from Ivy Academia. I didn't even know we had that many students sitting out here in the council chambers. What a well-behaved group of students that are with us today. And I will tell you, this is a tough issue, but it's clear that Ivy Academia Charter School is a great school. The students are articulate, the fact that they want to go to school, they want to stay in school. I mean, that's the issue we are struggling with, and we're going to be more involved with it in the city of Los Angeles now that our mayor has taken control of LAUSD in certain areas. The reason we have charter high schools cropping up everywhere, colleagues, is because LAUSD has done a miserable job of educating our students. And as you know, we have charter schools cropping up every week. Many of us have them in our own districts. Many of them have to locate in areas and facilities that were never intended to be schools, which is why I have created, with your agreement, an Office of Charter Schools in the city of Los Angeles. We're not going to be chartering schools, but we're going to do what LAUSD does not do, and that's help them find suitable locations, help them with building and safety, help them with permits, all in one place in the city of Los Angeles. The school district charters a school and basically says, good night and good luck, and most of the time they don't even say good luck, because charter schools are a threat to LAUSD public schools. But I will tell you, I understand neighborhood councils, I understand residential issues, but I don't know where we got to this place in the city that we didn't want neighborhood schools in residential areas. Every one of us... I dare say every one of us went to an elementary school that was right smack in the middle of a residential area. We want neighborhood schools. We want schools that are in neighborhoods. I mean, I don't know when we got to this point where we think schools should be located in industrial zones. I'll tell you, I have a couple of schools in my district that are next to industrial zones, and they have other huge environmental issues being in industrial zones. So I personally, if I was a planner, I like schools in residential neighborhoods. I think that's the right mix. And yeah, kids, laugh and make noise. I just am concerned about these 40 students that need to be relocated. I want to, I don't know if that's the right solution. I think, 114 students is a very, very small school. I would be in favor of allowing this charter school to have more students. But what I'll tell you, the one issue, and I know I'm over my time, but the one issue with the neighborhood council is something I want to know if that can't be worked on a little bit. My goal for neighborhood councils was not that they just took positions. on issues. My goal was that neighborhood councils worked with all the stakeholders in a community. If there were problems, can you solve them? If the school's a problem and a business owner has a problem with the kids getting out after school and ruining their, can they sit down together and solve the problems? My goal for neighborhood councils was not just to vote on issues, but actually solve issues in your community. And I don't know if some of these issues, besides the more students, can be resolved, but there's issues with trash and cars and noise. Are those the kind of things that can be resolved? So I'm here to say, as we move forward in the future, this is one of the schools that we want to embrace. This is the kind of school that I think is...
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Ms. Hahn, if you want to, we can push your button again, or you want to say one last sentence before you go to Mr. Weiss. Mr. Weiss?
Thank you, Madam President. As Mr. Weezer and Mr. Reyes stated, we had hours and hours and hours of hearings at Plum Committee on this. And I'll just tell Mr. Zine quite candidly, there were parts that were very frustrating for us. In fact, I recall, I think it was at the first or one of the first hearings where I instructed the administrators of the school to come with a legal representative because they were themselves they didn't seem to be following the questions that were being asked of them by city staff and the city attorney's office and all of us. And I want to restate today to the operators of the school, I want to see you with professional representation, because you can nod your head up and down, but without a professional representing you, you may not understand the gravity of the situation. So it's very important that you keep that. Now, having said that, Mr. Weezer said something at the last hearing which is really stuck in my mind. He said it is not fair to punish kids for the transgressions of adults. It is not fair to punish kids for the mistakes of adults. And for me, that's my bottom line. I know there are neighbors there who are concerned. I have dozens of schools in my district where neighbors get concerned. But I always side with the schools. I always side with the kids. Now, Mr. Reyes and Mr. Zine have worked to try to come up with a middle ground with this motion here. And I just had a conversation with both of them. I want to state that it is my understanding that by voting for this motion today, I am not voting to expel any kids from this school during this school year. I want to state very clearly, it's my understanding, you don't need, guys, this is irrelevant, because it's an important point, that it is clear that by passing this motion, no kids will be removed, expelled, kicked out, or otherwise released from this school during this school year. Now, it may mean that by passing this motion in coming years, and this is my understanding, tell me if I'm correct or not, it may be that in coming years, the school will either have to open up this new facility at a second location and enroll kids there, or it may need to admit fewer kids than it is accustomed to admitting in incoming classes. But no kid will be moved out of this school as a result of what we're doing today. That's my understanding. Is that a fair, Mr. Reyes and Mr. Zine, that's the intent of your motion? That's correct. Okay, Mr. Zine has said that's correct. Thank you.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Just a simple question. If we could ask the school people to come up for this question.
Representative who would like to come to the podium. Mr. Rosendahl is asking somebody step forward to the podium right there.
Yeah. Just curious, you have a second location for a school?
Yes, we do.
Where is it?
It's in DeSoto and Oxnard.
And what's that area like there, the industrial?
It's a Warner Center area, commercial Warner Center area. We refurbished their warehouse to house students.
How many students do you have there?
300.
And what's the difference in terms of academic and activities and progression of the kids in both schools?
This is a charter school of K to 12. We started as a K to 6 school, and now we're K to 8. Lower grades are located at Fallbrook. kindergarten and first grades are at Fallbrook. The higher grades are located at DeSoto. That site is a two-story facilities that are, accommodate to that age group.
So that's...
We're moving, it's a progression essentially, and primarily, the 40 more students, we actually enrolled 120 at the school, but because of the progression of the program that you have, because of the progression of the program, it's ended up at 150 as it decided at any point of time. I do want to point out, we do have a staggered traffic. They don't come at the same time, they don't leave at the same time. There's a 15 to 20 minutes delay between different groups leaving, so we are aware of the issue created by the school, and we're doing as much as we can to alleviate the traffic effect of our kids on the site. But we currently have 154 at the site.
So what's your suggestion when you figure it's supposed to be 114, you're 154? How do you get away in your own mind saying that, well, it's okay when the compliance says it isn't?
We asked for the increase about 18 months ago. We were going through the process. Our understanding was, we are complying with every physical condition that was asked for us. We were asked to build walls, we were asked to build, we did over $250,000 of taxpayers' money investment in the site. And what happened is that you spend a lot of money, you need the revenue to support that.
I understand that, but it was 114, you knew it was 114, you gone to 154. I mean, you're violating the law. I mean, and the kids come first. We all care about the kids.
Right.
I mean, nobody needs to demagogue on that. And charter schools are doing a great job, and God bless charter schools, I think it's great. But I mean, 114 versus 154, that's why we're here.
Right. Again, we're trying, our program is K to 12, so we had 4 kindergarten classes, half day. They're rotating into 4 first grade, so there's a natural progression where I disenroll the entire class. So we have 4 half-day kindergartens, and then they become a first grade, so that's how the progression actually happened.
Sure. Now, any chance of maybe splitting one of these classes to the other location just for that sensing?
The other location is at maximum enrollment.
It is at maximum
It is at
enrollment
maximum
right now?
enrollment, yes. The other location is at maximum enrollment as it is, and we're breaking the law somewhere else by bringing those kids. And I just want to assure you that we have 4 kindergartens that are half-day and then 4 first graders. By taking 40 kids, we have to break out the grade. Essentially, we have to take 2 of the first grade and move them somewhere else, and that's just the reality.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that insight. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Zine is next, then Ms. Hahn and Mr. Weezer.
I want to emphasize to Ms. Hahn that at no time did I ever say it wasn't a good school. I said that it's a good school, the scores are good. The concern is when we have a conditional use permit, whether it's your district or my district, and the neighbors are concerned about it, that we get compliance. If we don't get compliance with it, we have this type of situation. The issue about DeSoto, the statement just made that they'd be breaking the rules if they went over the number. Well, they're breaking the rules going over the number here to 154 versus 114. And that's the issue. We need to get compliance. And Mr. Weiss and I discussed this. Let this term finish, and they decided to increase this enrollment to 154. What if they increase it to 200? I mean, what I'm saying is we've got a condition for a particular reason, and we've got to comply with that. So let this school year finish. However they have their structure, they're going to have to comply with the 114. And as I understand, in speaking with the proprietors in previous times, is the plan was that they would move all of the students out of Fallbrook eventually into the DeSoto site, which is in a very close distance to Fallbrook to DeSoto. It's very close distance. It's not like it's 50 miles away. It's extremely close. It's the southwest San Fernando Valley. That, I understood, was the original plan. And there's sufficient space in there, and if we need to do something with a conditional use permit at that location, we'd be more than happy to sit down and discuss it with the school, the neighborhood, to increase that. But we're violating the rule here. We're asking for compliance. I agree with Mr. Weiss. I don't want to displace the students. I don't want the parents to find out where these students are going to go. Let this term complete. Let this, whatever cycle they're on. As they graduate, we know they're going to be graduating. They move into another arena. They move into another charter school or another public school or private school, whatever the case may be. And then the cap is 114. They need to comply with that 114 for the benefit of everything. And as far as all the other conditions, we need to get compliance with all the conditions that have been imposed. But what's happened in the Plum Committee is the proprietors say, well, we don't understand this. Now they get counsel to come and represent them. It's very clear. The conditions are laid out. They're agreed to by the school on behalf of the neighborhood, on behalf of the students, on behalf of the parents. It's for everyone's benefit. We've received emails from both sides of the fence. I'm not going to debate that. All I'm going to do is say we want the conditions applied to, we want the conditions adhered to by the school. So the residents can live in peace and harmony, the students can go to school and get an education, and we don't have to belabor ourselves trying to solve this problem. So 114 is the cap. We're willing to say, let this term finish, this whatever term they're on, you can't go above 114, and that's going to be the rule. And the other conditions that we have in place, they need to comply with. In addition to that, I've introduced a motion requiring the LAUSD elementary schools in Woodland Hills. We have approximately 5 schools, public schools in my district that are closed. And the enrollment of the valley is going down because of schools opening up in the central part of the city. Busing is being reduced. So we have vacant campuses in the San Fernando Valley, and there's 5 that I know of in my district. And we're requesting the LAUSD to report to the Schools and Neighborhood Committee on the opportunities to open up some of those schools for charter schools. Again, we are not anti-education, we're not anti-charter. If we've got vacant schools in the community, let the charters utilize that. So what we have, Ms. Hahn, and I know that education is critically important to you, it's important to me, it's important to many parents who have their kids at that school, students at school. Other sites are available, DeSoto's available, compliance needs to be adhered to. So this motion requesting LAUSD to come before the Education Neighborhood Committee to find out if they can utilize some of those sites. Maybe they can move everyone to another site or open up another school. I have no concern about the charter schools and the success of the charter schools. I just want to see peace and harmony in the neighborhood. So what I would request is that that Plum recommendation be amended, that the zoning review dates be adhered to, and at the end of that school year, they come down to the 114 compliance and not accept any numbers over the 114. Whatever curriculum they have to establish, it would be in compliance with the CUP. And the other conditions that have been in the zoning administrator, they comply with those conditions also. The noise, et cetera, traffic mitigation, et cetera. Thank you.
Mr. Labange is for the first time, and then Ms. Hahn for a second.
Clarification.
Is it a
On this
factual?
motion, I was waiting to speak till after, when Jack spoke, because
Okay, if it's
he misspoke on what this motion says. This-
Well, that's
if we
different than a
vote for
point of-
this,
If
it
you have a
says-
question of a point of clarification,
Yeah,
making that, but it
I have-
has to be formed as a question, otherwise we'll wait till you're speaking right after Mr. Labange, if you're
Okay,
making an
the
argument.
point of information, this motion, it says they have to have evidence that they relocated the students by February of next year. That's not what Jack said, we're not relocating any
Mr.
students.
Zine, why don't you clarify what the tension of the motion is?
Of the school year.
No, this says by February, the hearing evidence that they relocated the students.
Hold on.
Okay.
Okay.
What we
Mr. Zine
are
will clarify,
stating.
and then we'll hear from Mr. Labange, and then we'll get back to Ms.
Well,
Hahn.
you know, this.
That motion was introduced prior to our conversation.
Okay, well, that does not what this says.
What we want to do with that motion to be amended to stay at the end of the school year.
Okay, hold on, Ms. Hahn, one
And
second.
I'll cite the motion so there won't be
Okay.
any misunderstanding.
We'll get to you in just 1 second. Mr. Labange takes precedence. Mr. Labange?
Yeah, Mr. President, may I ask the owners of this school to come forth? I have a question. I understand the work that Mr. Zine and his staff has done on this issue here. You've heard the discussion that takes place here. What I believe is before us, and Madam Zoning Administrator, correct me if I'm wrong, is an amendment that would allow you to operate as you are today till June of 2007? Is that what is happening, Mr. Zine? When's the school term over?
June 30, let's say.
June 30th, 2007.
But they've got preschool and they've
I know,
got.
June 30th, 2000, I just want to get it straight. So what the council is doing on this is to enforce this work of the Plum Committee and then giving them to 2007, June 30th to comply, right?
If that's the end of the school year for the.
That's the end of the school year.
For the preschool And for
Preschool is
the,
actually August, but yeah, preschool is, so let's make
okay,
it
what we
August.
want to do, we don't want to displace the
Here's the
students.
thing, I want to support Mr. Zine. I want to support Mr. Zine because it's a balance of trying to deal with these issues. But as Ms. Hahn said, all our schools are in neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So there's a challenge. But I want you to support what the law is, because the challenge is when we go out of the way to support education, what we do, sometimes we extend a little further. I'm sure there was frustration with some of the residents because, okay, here was a little school, now it's a bigger school. And the zoning administrator now gets involved to try to lay this thing out. So I need to have pure clarification and assurance from you that you will comply, that by the 30th of June 2007, that you will have the cap, whatever the cap is. What's the cap, Madam Zoning Administrator? 114. You will have 114 on June 30, 2007.
Can I just misstate the fact?
No, I got to ask you if you're going to comply with the law, because that's what we're trying to do.
If that's the law, I will comply. But
okay, no, that's what I got to say. And we want to try to help you, Mr. Zine. I think you brought up an excellent question of the schools that are vacant, and to see the work, if you could help the school rent, buy property. I think what we have here is a movement of charter schools, which are very important, which is challenging to the LA Unified because some feel it's competitive to that, but I could see the work that all schools are good, but it's how you work with the neighborhood. That's the key. So, Mr. Zine, if you could clarify that, and then when we finally vote on this, make sure it clarifies, and then if you could listen and repeat it, that you will comply, because that's what I think the frustration is with the neighborhood, that of time and time again, you've had so much passion for education that you've overwhelmed the community.
Right.
So, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Hahn, and then Mr. Huizar.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, you'll comply with the law, but I think what makes me nervous, and I'm for everyone complying with what they agreed to, but in certain circumstances, you know, we have sometimes given some extensions, or we've altered the CUPs. I think what you're doing here is certainly altering it for a year. You're allowing them to keep the extra 40 students. I know he's agreed to comply with the law, but I'm not comfortable with knowing what that is going to mean to those 40 students. And until I know what complying with the law means in terms of those 40 students, I'm not comfortable with voting for this. I would be much happier to, continue this or send it to the committee. And I want them to come back with a concrete plan on how you are going to deal with the students above the 114. And until I know where those kids are going to go, I'm not comfortable voting for this.
can I answer?
Yes.
The result of this CUP would be, we currently have 4 kindergartens. We'll have to displace 20 kids next year. We can only open 3 first grade. Just give you the results.
And when you say displace, what does that mean?
It means not enroll for lottery, essentially.
See, colleagues, I think you think that they're all going to this Soto location, and that's not true. So I wouldn't think any of you would be comfortable voting until you know what you're asking them to comply with the law, but I think you need to know what that means before we consider maybe, alleviating that a little bit or allowing them some extra students. I know I'm not comfortable. We've heard a lot of things today, but I think you all think these 40 students are going to go to some empty campus that's unused. I know about charter schools. We've started one in San Pedro. You can't just put 40 students and expect to amortize the cost with teachers and facilities and equipment and curriculum. You can't do that. It all adds up. So I don't think you should be comfortable voting for them complying with the law until you know what that means for these 40 students. And I'm not comfortable. And then I think we can make a decision. If he says they have to displace kindergartens and you've got that before you and you think that's more important than this CUP, then that's the decision we want to make. I want to have all that information before me before I vote on this.
Mr. Huizar?
Thank you very much. I want to commend Mr. Zine. I think this is a good compromise because in the committee we did feel a lot of frustration from both sides on the community's concern about not following rules and regulations, and at the same time, whether we like them or not, they're rules and regulations, and they need to be followed. On the other hand, the need to make sure that parents in that community have a choice, an alternative to LUSD, and that is as equally powerful. I think if we allow the students to be there for the additional 40 to be this year, it will take care of the issue that the committee had, which is we didn't want to disrupt the students' education for this 1 year. But Ms. Hahn also raised an important point, which is what happens to the students afterwards. And the rule and the regulation is 114. It's been broken. We have an important civics lesson to our students. We're compromising where we can and allowing them to stay there for this full year. I do think we need to amend the motion you have, Mr. Zine, to allow that to happen. And I did say at the committee meeting as well that one of the unique things and good things about charter schools is that you are not required to follow all the complex, convoluted rules and regulations within LUSD to function. And a lot of the times that prohibits or inhibits good schools from doing what they can to focus on the child and the classroom. And so charter schools have all this flexibility when it comes to functioning as an academic institution. However, that does not mean schools and charter schools should not follow the rules and regulations of the city. And that's something I think we need to point out just as importantly. And Mr. Zine, in terms of your motion that you introduced to ask the LUSD to look at those other sites, I think it'd be a great message if the city gets behind supporting communities who want to take advantage of available seats at local LUSD schools and allow charter schools who are providing a good service to our students, allowing them to succeed academically, to use those sites. It'll be a huge battle because the mentality right now at the school district is that they do not want to allow charter schools to come on those campuses. There was a huge issue with that in South Los Angeles with Green Dot. And if once we review that, see that it's a good thing, and put our name to saying, let's put kids first, let's allow these unused facilities to be used by schools that are doing a good job for our kids, I think that's going to send a very strong message. I would urge that we go forward with Ms. Zine's motion with the knowledge that we will allow those students to be there for another academic year. I think that is a good compromise to allow those students to go forward and not disrupt their academic program for this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huizar. Mr. Reyes, and then Mr. Zine.
Yes, thank you, colleagues. I understand the passion I hear from Councilmember Hahn. I agree with you. Each life is very important. But again, I take this moment to let the administrators know that they have put the children and the parents in a bad place, that they have broken the law, and they have caused a sense of tension here that now causes us to have this kind of discussion. Councilmember Rosendahl asked, how did we pass 114? You were very eloquent in explaining your program, your curriculum, and how it moves, but someone decided that it's okay to pass 114 and break the law and reach the number you've reached. Now I believe, if I hear Councilmember Zine correctly, and you're right, Councilor Hahn, we need some clarity on the language, but if we can offer the 40 students the opportunity to finish this academic year, no matter how you structure that, but that the following class in the next academic year be capped at 114. You can do it through Lotto, you can do it through different methodologies, but that's going to be the nature of your limitations as an institution. So when you start talking about, well, we have to pay this, we have to pay that, the bills, and however it is that you need to manage a school, the reason why you raise the numbers, that's a management issue. Right now we're dealing about a legal issue, and we want to make sure that we're complying with the law. So my heart goes out to those 40 slots. The 40 students will be taken care of this year, but there has to be follow through on the rules and regulations. And I believe Councilmember Zine will be introducing some language that clarifies and addresses Councilmember Hahn's concern about the actual period in time and when they should comply.
Mr. Zine, the queue's been jumped by some people who haven't spoken before. Ms. Gruhl for a first time, Mr. Labange for a second, Mr. Rosendahl for a second, and right now you're in the queue for your third. Okay, we'll make sure that you can close out. Ms. Gruhl.
I will be brief because I was at the chair for most of this discussion listening, and as a parent of a 3-year-old, which you hear me say frequently, but the fact that I've looked at a lot of schools in my area, and I have in my particular community, I have a lot of private schools, not necessarily charter schools, but private schools who live under conditional use permits. Oakwood, Campbell Hall, that follow the rules of which that have been put forward. I agree that with Ms. Hahn in the point that, I get complaints from people who live across the street from an elementary school that's been there 50 years and say, I don't like kids, there's too many kids, I hear noises. And I always say to them, when you bought your home, you knew that there was a school across from you. Well, as indicated, I think we found a good middle ground and a position that Mr. Zine has taken, which is to protect those students that are there, but also to follow the rules. Because 40 students may seem like not a lot, but if it's 40, then it may be 60, and then it may be 100. And we have to work with the issues of traffic, which I know people don't like to say what's more important, kids or traffic, but I know, again, at some of my private schools where the numbers have gone up, it causes a big problem, just like we deal with the issues of affordable housing, where some people like to put more density in those areas, but the community fights that because it's going to make a difference in the community. So I think that Mr. Zine has found a middle ground to assist this and to look for other sites, because education is our top priority. We do not have enough locations to be able for our quality education, and it's clear that this is a fabulous school that people want to support. It just has to be within the confines of what they agreed to when they got their original conditional use permit. And there is an opportunity always for people to come and say, we'd like to change our conditional use permit and go through that process where there are public hearings and to look at those locations. So I support Mr. Zine today.
Thank you. Mr. Labange?
Staff clarified my question.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Rosendahl?
Could we ask the school administrator to come back up again? Hi, you did mention two things. You said that for cost factor, and you were balancing it out, and this is how you ended up going over the 114. You just said a couple of seconds ago that you would be in compliance in '07, in the fall of '07, when the school starts again. And of course, Ms. Hahn is got the right priority, kids come first. So are we going to lose kids, or just new ones coming in aren't going to be coming in the kindergarten or first grade that weren't part of the process, and therefore there's not going to be any expectations that have been dropped or kids that have lost their relationships with other kids? How are you going to get down that 40?
We'll have to sit down, but just, a common reaction, we have 4 kindergartens that are full, that are, at capacity, pretty much. So in order for those 4 kindergartens to move into first grade, if we need to come down by 1 grade, which means we can't have 4 first grade next year, we have to have 3 first graders next year. Now, I have to read the law, how we have, as a charter school, a public school, there's a process to displace students that you cannot accommodate. So we have to follow their state law by displacing those students that cannot come back to the school.
How many do you have in the kindergarten? In each of the 4 classes?
You have 4 classes, 20 in each, so it's class of 20, 80.
So why don't you just do 2 kindergarten classes so that there's no expectations by any parents bringing kids in there in kindergarten and they can't go to first and cause that anguish? Just have 2 kindergartens.
We could, but it's a half day, again, it's a management kind of decision where you have 4 half-day kindergartens. And, financially, the state pays you the same amount of money where the kindergarten is half day or full day. So there's no additional cost. And plus, we don't bring in additional students, per se, by having 4 kindergartens, because one of them in the morning, the other one in the afternoon. So it's not an additional addition. The problem comes in is the year after, when you move to the first grade, it becomes a problem because you have 4 first grade. Again, we all, trying to live with neighborhood. If there's a solution to find where we're happy to look for site, we're happy to work with LAUSD. We filed 2 Proposition 39 requests over the last 2 years. Everything was denied. There's 5 closed sites that collecting dust around our area. and nobody wants to, give us those sites to charter schools. So that's the situation we're in. I am thankful for Councilman Zine to bringing this motion to the city. Hopefully, with that document, I can come back to the LAUSD and say, look, you have a city that wants to come in. Where the issue comes in is that dropping it to 114, what would you want me to do? I mean, and also one thing it wasn't mentioned, the conditions that are being put on us as a public charter schools are never being put on a regular public schools. Children are treated differently simply because they choose to go to a charter school versus the regular public schools. And that's it's a different issue, but I'm just going to bring it that we want to comply with the law. We want to follow all the laws, not just the city law, but also the state law, state educational code that requires to do certain things. But because sometimes those things conflict with each other, we end up in this situation where, we're kind of on the bad side of you guys who are, I believe, doing a wonderful job in trying to come to a solution here. I want you to understand this is what dilemma that we have. We are happy to look for another site. Hopefully we can relocate. Hopefully LAUSD can give us another site that are closed. But I want you to think what would happen in June when 154 become 114. Maybe we can find a site.
Here's my hope. My hope is LAUSD gets enlightened. I mean, that's why our mayor got so aggressive on education. Right. And if there are school facilities around the neighborhood that LAUSD has and they're not being used, well, they should come to the table and they should open up those school locations, those sites, and let charter schools go in there. And I'm outraged when I hear Jose Huizar say that the school, LAUSD, is resistant to charter schools if they have a facility for them. So bring us into the loop on that, and we'll stick our nose in it, because if there's down the street an empty building that should be used, we want to fight for you on that, okay?
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Hahn?
Yeah, I just, again, what we're agreeing to today is allowing them to break the law for the rest of the school year. But part of what I want to still urge the neighborhood council to do is to, work together with the school currently and see if there are some other issues that you think could help you to work together. And again, sometimes, most of the CUP violations we have are from, polluters and from and companies that are causing environmental injustice. And I mean, those are usually the kind of CUP violations we get, noise, traffic, trucks, delivering and picking up in the wee hours. I mean, their violation is, educating students. So, we do look at things a little differently sometimes. And if they choose to come back and ask for us to relook at the CUP, I hope that's something we can look at. But just for clarification, one more time, because I still think we're confused here. 40 students, you have 154, you've agreed to, by next September, to have 114. 40 students, are you just not accepting 40 more students, or are you going to relocate 40 students?
According to the law, if we cannot relocate them to our DeSoto site, which we can, given the current situation at DeSoto site, we will have to conduct, I believe we have to conduct a lottery where we have to displace the students, to the school. I think this is a state law. I'm going to defer to the attorney.
I just want everybody to realize that. Everybody's talking about just don't have another kindergarten class or just don't accept more people. I think what you're hearing is they're going to have a lottery and they're going to have to displace 40 kids that may not end up in another great charter school. But that's just the information we have. And let me just also shed a little bit of light on this. LAUSD could come into any residential neighborhood, do eminent domain, and put a school that could have up to 2,000 students. So to me, having a charter school in a residential neighborhood has a better chance of working with the neighbors, working with the neighborhood councils to come up with a solution where we know we want, what's best for our society is to educate kids and to have them really be academically superior. So just to know, if an LAUSD school decided to come into that location, you would have nothing to say about it. You would have nothing to say about the amount of students. You would have nothing to say about the hours of operation. So I think having a charter school in a neighborhood is a much better scenario for a residential neighborhood. And I wish and I hope that maybe you could still sit down and work out a compromise besides what we have before us today, because I don't like this compromise. I don't like trying to displacing 40 kids. I know what LAUSD is like. It's a just remind people, charter schools are public schools. It's not a private school. They don't get tuition. They depend on the state paying per student.
If I can ask you to conclude.
So it's not a management issue. It's the nature of charter schools, which are disadvantaged when they try to get into the public school system.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Mr. Zine is next.
Ms. Shawn, I appreciate your passion on this. I recall down in Wilmington, San Pedro, when I visited your neighborhood, how they stock those big containers and how you were very passionate about the community because it destroys the community. I understand about public and private and charter and all that. There are 5 vacant schools in my district, 5 vacant LAUSD schools, and hopefully my motion will bring them to the table and they can open that up. The fact of the matter is every year students are going to move up to another level. There's a progression, as we know. So what they do is they say that we're only going to take a certain amount of students this next year. We're not going to exceed that number because we could be in here talking about 200 over the number. There has to be a limit on everything. And that's what we're talking about. The 114, it's a converted house. This is not a building and a commercial. This is a converted house that's been turned into a school with some bungalows that are move-on, the portables. So it's not an improved area for a school. It's a converted house. What we want to do is work with the neighborhood. We want to work with the school, not displace the parents. But next year, students will be leaving that school and going on to the DeSoto site. There will be other students going on to other schools. There'll be people who will move and they'll relocate their children. We need to have a condition and the number because of the topography, because of the neighborhood, because of all the conditions. The 114 is a reasonable number. So what I'm asking for is that we approve the zoning administrator conduct a hearing no later than February 28th to review the Ivy Academia Charter School compliance conditions of approval, and that the school operator file an application for review of the condition approval no later than November 2006 with the planning department. And the enrollment at the school be limited to 114 students, and that Ivy Academia Charter School provide in their November 2006 application for review of the conditions of approval evidence that they are in the process of finding an alternative site for the 40 students being relocated, or they're going to graduate, or they'll go someplace else. And furthermore, provide that June 07, hearing evidence that they are at the compliance number of 114. So what we're going to say is they stay at the 154, and at June 07, whether they graduate or they limit the enrollment or they do lottery or whatever the case may be, they will then be at the CUP number of 114. So we're giving them an extension on that. We're letting those students graduate or the parents relocate or whatever the case may be, because there is that progression in the schools. And we didn't take in the fact where students will go from one grade to another. They will automatically leave that site to another school because they'll be graduating to the DeSoto site.
Hold on one second.
Hold on, but let's not talk about Ms. Struth.
I'm sorry, it's not a point of clarification technically, so let me...
I'm saying June 07 is what we've agreed to.
And you're on the roll, but I'm going to go to Mr. Labange after...
The truth is, we're going to give them till June 07.
Colleagues, we're going to take one person at a time. Mr. Zine, finish any comments you have.
So the motion is
that we do
that we do that, which we've discussed. The students aren't going to be relocated. They'll be capped at 114. June 07, they will be in compliance. So any new students coming in, they won't be able to accept more than 114. That's what the cap will be. But I want to emphasize that by that time, there'll be a number of students that will be leaving this site, and if they stay with it, they go to the next level, they go to the next, the progression, Janice, of the school. You go from the first grade to the second grade, the third grade, fourth grade. They have a DeSoto site. which the students will leave this site and progress to the DeSoto site. There's a condition that they can have 300 students there. So the escalation, no, they won't be able to take 80 students in next year, but if 80 graduate, then they'll be able to take 80 in. But the bottom line is the cap is 114, so no one's getting relocated until the time when they have to put the cap on. That's what we're talking about, 114, taking effect June of next year.
Thank you, Mr.
And then I would request that they report back in 60 days to the zoning administrator on their plan and how they're going to implement, whether they're going to do a lottery or some other procedure to make sure they reach that number that we're agreeing to. Thank you.
Mr. Zine. Mr. Labange is next, and then Ms. Hahn.
The question is June 1st or June 30th?
Whatever the date of graduation from that day
Let's
forward.
get it on the record so that
Okay.
we're not back here again.
June 30th? Is June 30th an acceptable date?
Hold on one second. Hold on
Why
one
are we
second.
having them be
Ms.
at the
Hahn, you're next.
cap?
Hold on one second, please, Ms. Hahn.
Until September.
We have a clarification
when
from
the
Mr.
school year
Labange. What
starts.
was the date, please?
Why wouldn't you want it when the school year starts?
Because the school year ends.
No,
You have to,
you
you know,
want
the
it when
school
year
doesn't
starts.
really ends. I mean, the school could be on a full year calendar. You know, the semester would end at this end of June, but there's
Okay,
going
then I
to
think it should be the end of June because that's the traditional time. We're all going back to traditional calendars. It's
Okay.
not a year-round facility, right? You're not a year-round school. You're overcrowded, but you're not a year-round LA Unified School. And by the way, Mr. Reyes, I think what would be important in the future, like Jane Blumenthal handles the issues related to LA Unified and trying to help LA Unified, maybe we need to find someone in the planning department who works with the growing charter movement who could work with planning, so maybe we could have that there. So I have the date of June 30th, 2007. You agree to that?
if it's the law, we have to.
Well, the law right now is you can't do it, so when you're not agreeing to it, you got to say with some compassion that you're going to agree to this, because I think that's what the councilman is trying to do it. You know, June 30th, 2007.
Okay. Ms. Hahn is our next speaker. Ms. Hahn?
Does this school end in June and start in September, right now?
At this point, yes.
Okay. Doesn't make sense to me that they hit the cap at the end of the school year. What we want them to do is to be at the cap when they begin in September, because we're giving this school year, we're giving them a pass on those 40 extra students. What we're requiring them to do is go back to following the law when they begin in September. So in September is when they have to have the cap. How are you going to get rid of 40 students in June?
I just want a clarification. The
You
school year.
want them to abide by the law in September when they start the new school year.
June 30th, September 1st, either way.
September 1st makes more sense. They're not going to be able to.
It's one day, it doesn't really matter to me.
Well, I mean, the point is they're going to go through re-enrollment, they're going to go through reapplications. When they need to follow the law is when they start the new school year.
September 1st.
Yeah, not in June.
September 1st.
Right.
Ms. Gruhl?
And then they can account for, I don't think I'm done yet, and I don't think, and then they can account for your progression and their graduation, and they'll have a better sense of where they are.
But
Doesn't make
September-
sense. If we're giving them for the rest of the school year, we're allowing them to, we're giving them a pass on these 40 students. What we want is, and the neighborhood wants them to go back to following the law in the new school year.
As of
So
September 1st.
by September 1st, they need to be following the law, not in June.
It's agreed upon, friendly amendment, no objection from anybody? Okay.
Wait, I
Ms.
have a
Gruhl?
question.
Yep,
My
you're
only
next.
question is, the gentleman said, at this time, we are not year-round. What happens if the school decided to do a summer program that would have 154? Would you accept that?
No, they've got to
Okay,
stay
so
at that cap.
so I think what we're saying is, Ms. Hahn, I mean, I agree, if they're not having anything this summer, it doesn't make sense for it to be June if it's actually September 1st. But if the school decided to have a summer program and wanted to have 154, they do that under your proposal. And all I'm asking to Mr. Zine is that would be acceptable to you and the community, because what I had heard was through this school year, because it would be the displacement issue,
Right.
not a summer program.
Correct.
So I don't know if they want to commit to that publicly today, that they will not have a summer program for 154 students.
There's a time. Hello, I'm sorry. There is a time the students is not performing that by law we have to provide them with a summer program. I cannot at this point say how many students will be in that situation in June.
114.
Okay.
47, so under my asking the question, which is, the issue that everyone is trying to deal with is those students that would be displaced, okay? So you have those 40 kids. We do not want to see them displaced. You get that from here. But the only concern is that the community and the council member has asked that we'll help you through that June 30th. But what Mr. Zine would also like is that not during that summer program that then you say, well, all those same kids we're going to keep through the summer just because we want to run a summer program. It has nothing to do with the displacement. And so the issue is, and I will take the guidance of Mr. Zine, but I think he wants to make sure that by June 30th that there's no longer.
Okay, that closes. Mr. Zine, do you want to?
I just want to call the question.
Okay.
So
There's nobody else on the queue, so there is no need to call the question if nobody else.
June 30th.
If nobody else wants to be heard, then.
And then okay.
Yeah, go ahead. No, if you need to clarify, go ahead, Mr.
I just want to clarify that the zoning administrator, they will meet with you within 60 days to lay out their plan and how they're going to execute that. Okay? Thank you.
Okay. That is the end of the speaker queue. We have before us, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, do you wish to vote on the amending motion by itself?
Is there any objection to the amending motion? Why don't we accept that as a friendly amendment then, seeing no objection? So I don't think that will require a vote.
I made the verbal amendment, June 30th.
If there's no objection to that, it's considered friendly. One member can't object, and it has to be voted on. Okay? That is friendly accepted. Hearing no objection. So, Mr. Clerk, we have before us.
So you would have the Plum Committee report with the amending motion before you.
All righty. Let's open the roll.
Thank you.
Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That passes.
Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you very much,
And
Mr.
thank you,
Zine.
students that are back in class.
Thank you. Colleagues, when we took up the item before on item number 13, the issue at Hollywood and Vine, there were some folks that were actually on the subway coming here, including the owner of Bernard Luggage, Mr. Blue. I would, since we send that forthwith, it requires us suspending the rules, and then I'll get to you right after, Mr. Parks. Is it a quick thing? Or?
Get 11A, and it's a technical motion clarifying instruction. If we can get that, we can release city employees.
Okay. That's been circulated?
Yes.
Okay, let me do that right after this one then. If we can open the roll, I would move to suspend the rules to reopen public comment, close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
And I'd like to invite Ziggy Cruz, Bob Blue, and Chris. Oh, I'm sorry, we have to then reconsider. Let's open the roll and reconsideration. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
To come forward and to give public comment at this time. Thank you for your patience, guys, and
That's quite
thank you
all
for
right.
using public transit to get here.
Oh, yeah, we did. What an experience that is all the time. Anyway, first of all, I would like to thank you for for putting us back up here, and thank you. The Honorable Council President and Council members, after all this time, I truly am happy to stand here in front of you to thank you in approving the agreement between the city and Bob Blue and to move forward with the Hollywood Vine project. Not only did you save my job, but you also showed the citizens of Los Angeles that it's never too late to go back to the drawing board and to incorporate a small business into a giant project. When Bob first told me that a mutual friend of ours and City Council President Garcetti had arranged a meeting with the parties involved in this project, I almost cried. I thought that day would never come. But anyway, for the longest time I thought that Mr. Garcetti was not our friend, that he was interested in being a businessman and doing the best for the city of Los Angeles. I was wrong. Mr. Garcetti stepped up to the plate and made things happen. Though he might have thought at that time that he came into the rescue during the 11th hour, he soon realized that it was more so the writing of a new history and the beginning of a friendship. He brought the parties together and they actually talked. I pretty much had the same feeling about the CRA. Anybody who was willing to take away a small business so it can be replaced with a bigger business, these people cannot be nice. I was proven wrong again. They are all human after all, and as such they realize that they are about to destroy an institution that has made it through thick and thin in Hollywood. Ms. Cicerich also realized that there were actual people working in this business, and I hope for the future that the employees will take a front burner position instead of being put on the farthest plate in the back. Even though this Hollywood story is coming to a happy ending as far as Bernard Luggage is concerned, there are still businesses and employees involved in this project who didn't get enough credit or recognition. It is these people who will keep my fighting spirit going when it comes to being replaced, displaced, and misplaced through eminent domain. Thank goodness that was taken off the plate here. Anyway, in the end, I would sincerely hope that all the parties involved in this chapter of Hollywood history will learn from the mistakes that were made throughout the process, and that in the future, those who want to make a difference in a certain neighborhood include the people, business owners, property owners, renters, especially the employees, with their plans from the beginning. With that said, I want to extend my sincerest thank yous to all of you who got us to this point and made sure that Bernard Luggage will be back and operating from its current location with the new project having its back.
Thank
you very much.
Appreciate it, Ziggy. Bob Blue?
Thank you, Council President, Honorable Council. We just got on the Hollywood Vines station, got off at Civic Center. It really was a pleasure. It was very convenient. This morning, we all got together and we did talk about history today, and blending history with the new. We talked about the Equitable Building. We've been in business 60 years, and my grandfather actually had deep roots in LA because he had started in the Roslyn Hotel. He had Roslyn Luggage there. And I am really proud of the decision and the agreement everyone was able to come to. I think this is a benefit not only for Hollywood, but for all of LA, and I think it's a plan that the rest of the state can look at as a way to do business, and we can all learn from it. And thanks again, I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob. Chris Chabelle?
Good morning, everybody. When eminent domain was first mentioned for this project, I told Bob Blue that I would support him in whatever his decision would be. I'm against eminent domain. Too many property owners, too many tenants, too many employees have been on the losing side of private development. I will support Prop 90, that no eminent domain for gain. However, the outcome today is a dream come true. Bob and Councilman Eric Garcetti, the CRA, the community, and the city has made a decision that I hope that sets a precedent for every developer to follow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you all for your roll. Again, do you need to re-vote on that then? If we can open the roll again on that, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
And if there's no objection, we'll send that forthwith. Thank you all very much for your indulgence, and thanks for coming down to City Hall for that, folks. 11A, we have had the motion circulated. Mr. Parks? Okay.
Circulated, just clarifying the instruction on the committee report as it relates to the Department of Finance and the city attorney.
Great. All right. Anybody else wishing to be heard on 11? If not, let's open the roll as amended, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved. All right.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Item 27 was called special by Councilmember Hahn.
All right. Councilmember Hahn, we have item 27. Ms. Hahn?
I had no idea that
is before us.
Take 3 days.
That is the
We have Phil
port
Tondro.
leasing
Phil
policy.
Tondro, front and center. Where's my stuff?
Should be right here, Dennis. Here you go.
Colleagues, what we're doing today is, I believe we're note and filing the port's new leasing policy, which our controller, Laura Chick, was one of the first ones that sort of discovered something that many of us were cognizant of, but didn't have the documents to prove it, that the port over the years really never did have a concrete leasing policy. And many times port property was leased to tenants under interesting conditions, and the answer was usually, well, the people that know what they're doing are the people that know what they're doing, and we don't really need a written policy. Well, you know, we don't feel that way, and we feel like the port could do a better job leasing. We feel like they could get a better rate of return by doing it a different way and issuing RFPs in a more public, transparent way. So we're in favor of that. However, I will say there's been an issue that's come up recently that makes me question if this new leasing policy is makes room for some of the tenants. I know that it clearly lays out policies for our major tenants and our major pieces of property when a business is not there any longer. But one of the issues I've had, colleagues in San Pedro and in the Port of Los Angeles, the fishing industry really began there, some 50 years ago. And there are families in San Pedro for 50 years that have been in the fishing industry. Not only the fishermen that actually go out and catch the fish, but there are warehouses where the ships come back in, the boats come back in and offload their fish. And it's come to my attention that one of these tenants got an eviction notice because of not complying with what we think is this new policy. I guess my question to you, Phil, is what did we do to go from the old school where no one was paying attention, only a few people were entering into leases and agreements, a lot of people did things under the radar, probably not appropriately, to where we are today, which is a new, strict, clean public policy for how we lease port property. I feel like some of these smaller, family-owned businesses may be caught up in this the way they always did it for 50 years, and the way now we're expecting them to do it. And I'm wondering if you could just speak to what outreach we did with every single tenant face-to-face in this new leasing policy. Can you hold my time?
And you have 3 more minutes. It was just on 3, but you have 6 to start.
Okay. Phil Tondro, Director of Real Estate, Harbor Department. We are, as you stated, we're in a transitional period right now. And we want this leasing policy to apply not only to the major container terminals that we have, but also across the board all the leases that we have. The one particular instance you're speaking of is the fishing markets, the fish stalls, if you were, that receive the fish from the boats, process it, and get it out. And what we're doing with them, in this particular instance you're talking about, happened just prior to the leasing policy being established. And we had some issues with how things were done, both in the taking over of the business as well as the modifications being done, particularly just prior to that. When we did have a vacant stall, we went out for an RFP. Even though the leasing policy had not been adopted or approved, we still followed the tenets of the leasing policy. In this particular instance you're discussing, we have given them an extra 60 days, so we rescinded the termination. We are in the process.
Did you rescind the termination?
Yeah, and we give another 60 days. We extend it out for 60 days to allow us to review everything, to allow them to come back and see what we're going to do. Because our intent is during those 60 days, we're going to meet with every one of the fish stalls, the owners of the fish stalls, which in this case, one family owns or will control over 30% of the entire market down there. And so these leases, for one reason or another, have not been renewed since 1999. We are in the process of renewing them for 5 years with a 5-year option, but we're going to explain to everybody what the new rules are, how we expect them to operate.
Had you done this prior?
No, we had not done this prior because we were still what we were doing was we wanted to do an appraisal of the property to see what the new rents would be. We wanted to get an indication of who actually was operating there. And what we found is that the people we thought were operating there were not. It had changed a number of times. We were not aware of it, or had changed inside the family a couple of times. So we're in the data collection business, and now we have all that data. Now we're going to meet with them to establish, okay, from here on in, this is how this is going to run, and let them know that. We ensure that they do take the fish in over the wharf and process it rather than bringing fish in from the outside. So we are aware of the intricacies of this market down there, and we're going to make allowances for that. But at the same time, we're calling them all in to tell them that this is how it's going to be from now on, be a level playing field for everyone.
Well, first of all, I have concerns that you did not make an effort with all of our tenants, particularly since our new general manager, our executive director, one of the things she talked about as the difference between Los Angeles and Long Beach was she heard all the time of the way we treated our tenants on the Los Angeles side, where our communication was poor, letters were sent to the port and gone unanswered. In fact, I understand this company actually sent a letter that was never responded to. So I was kind of thinking, especially with the new leasing policy, that again, we went from old school where nobody paid attention to new school where you know, we're going to pay a lot more attention. So I'm very concerned that you waited even till you collected data before you met with the tenants. I think it was really on your shoulders to have met individually with all of our tenants with the new leasing policy. It's the first time we've ever done this. I think that was an error on your part.
Well, we have definitely done a outreach to our tenants to explain to them what the leasing policy contains and what it has. And also,
have you met with each one of them individually?
Not yet, but we have, you know, as
See,
the
that's my
leases,
problem.
yeah, with the leases have come up and everything, we have
Yeah.
communicated it to them.
I think my recommendation is that you meet with all the tenants
Certainly.
now, not when their lease comes up, now. Explain to people what our new leasing policy. And then the other issue I take issue with is, you know, I just think the Maersk, the China Shipping, the Evergreen, the NYK versus a family-owned fish stall, those are different entities.
Yes, they are.
And what in your leasing policy kind of takes into account a 50-year-old family from San Pedro versus Evergreen, China Shipping, and Maersk? Is there any allowance in your new leasing policy for that, that difference?
I think there is. I think the policy itself is divided up into two sections, one for we call long-term major tenant leases and one for short-term, we consider the family-run businesses and everything. But in the entry to this, the guiding principles that we use and everything apply to everybody equally, and we agonized over how we were going to word it so it applied to everyone. And so it's across the board that even though you are China Shipping or even though you are an old family, you're still going to have to abide by these certain principles. One being that, you know, you have to pay your rent on time. Other being there's environmental measures now that we have
Right.
to put into place and into effect.
Right.
And everybody has to abide by those.
Right.
And at the same time, my office, the way I have it structured is that people are dealing primarily with the terminals, but other people are dealing primarily with the smaller businesses as well. So we have equal attention given to everyone.
Well, I would just ask you, Phil, I know you're looking at this, but I want you to take another look at particularly ocean fish.
Certainly.
This is, again, I just went to Croatia and Italy over the summer, and you know, everyone in both those places knows that the fishing industry started in San Pedro with some of the families that
Right.
came here, you know, 50, 60 years ago. So it would, I think, be an unfortunate situation for, you know, you to evict on a technicality a longtime San Pedro family. And so I just would ask that you take another look at that situation, see if something can't be resolved, see if we might not say, from this day forward, this is what we expect of you. But if there was anything that happened during the interim or fell through the cracks, I would ask that you look at what this has meant to San Pedro and certainly to as one of the longstanding port tenants.
We'll definitely do that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Ms. Gruhl is next.
Thank you, and I want to commend Ms. Hahn, because she has been on this issue for a long time, and when we served on audits and government efficiency together, which was a year or two ago that we started talking about this leasing policy, and I will never forget an exchange I had, not with you, but someone in the department, who said to me, everyone who needs to know about our leases knows. We don't really need to have this open, transparent process because the people who know. And I was a little amazed at that and made me even more strident to push forward on this leasing policy as it came through both audits and government efficiency, and I think through your committee as well, Ms. Hahn. But it does set up a policy, I think, that is clear that no matter where you live, who you represent, what part of the world you are, that there is a policy that they can abide by, and there are procedures in which the department has to actually follow. And so I just wanted to stand up and recognize Ms. Hahn for her leadership on this issue, and to ensure, and I think some of her questions in not waiting till the end of their lease makes it very clear as they're making decisions as to what they're going to do. Here is the new lease policy. So I'm not sure if there was a report back at all in this leasing policy, if that makes sense, Ms. Hahn, to kind of have a report back in a year from now or 6 months from now that says, here's what, okay.
We could
What do you
that.
think would be a better time period, 6 months or 12 months?
Well, you give us 12 months because we're in the process now. The one advantage of this policy is that it can be amended via policy directives, and there's a number of them that we're doing right now. I have to have board approval, and then we can go through and then report back to you on all the ones that how we've modified it in order to be more responsive to our tenant
And our
needs.
city clerk mentions that actually it is in the report for a report back. So there were great minds think alike that it was already in there. So we look forward to hearing on that report back. But this is an important issue, particularly as we are trying to be transparent in our policies, and appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl. Nobody else on the speaker queue, so let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item 42 is called special by Councilmember Smith.
Oh,
Okay. We also have cards on this one. If I can invite Zuma Dog forward.
Check, 1, 2, check, check, thank you. This is item 42. This is regarding investigating existing contract methods of the city to deal with the unpredictable increases in the cost of materials. Now, first, I'd like to say that we do need to expect increase of material costs because we got India and China hogging up all the cement right now, so there's a cement shortage. Plus, we got problems in Hurricane Katrina, a lot of development down there. So basically, that's why, boy, the mayor should be really jealous of all the developing in India and China, man. They must be making so much money. So that's why there's a shortage of material, so that is true. Now, what I'd also like to bring the attention of regarding this is we have fast tracking of preferred developers on permits and zoning for changes. You get a lot of fudge factor, a lot of the mayor's preferred vendors, developers, they get the fast track to permits, and I don't like that. And so maybe we could look into that. Also, the mayor, Antonia Villagrosa, has waived taxes for condo and residential developers. You got a lot of condos going up all over the city. Zuma Dog says that's good. We all know that. However, I don't see why the developers get their taxes waived, because guess where that tax money's supposed to go, y'all? It's supposed to go to parks and recs and social services and things like that. So the mayor's allowing the richest of the rich in this whole world that runs the city, the developers, they waive taxes and they keep it in the developer's pocket instead of going to the poorest of poor. So those are the big issues on that. So to recap, yes, costs will be going up because India, China is hogging up all the cement because they're developing like crazy. We have permits being fast-tracked to preferred vendors, and that never sounds good to me, especially with a lot of the fudge factor going on. And then you put on top of that the taxes for these condos. These developers are going to be making boatloads of money. They can afford to pay the taxes. We shouldn't be waiving taxes. Give a little bit back. Robin Hood, you steal from the rich and give to the poor, but in this city it's the other way around, thanks to the mayor. Zuma Dog for City Council.
Next, we have Matt Dowd, DS 81.
That's right, Deep South 81, number 6 with a bullet. Today, YouTube, you can check that out, but let's stay on the topic, Mr. City Attorney. Thank you for that correction. Item 42, this looks like an ethics issue, once again, especially the part where it says, report back to the Public Works Committee and Council within 90 days on best practices. So I'm all in favor of this. It sounds good. You got the Department of Public Works, the General Services Police, the CAO, whoever the new one will be, and the city attorney. So I'm all in favor of anything that looks and that this is the kind of task force we need in this city, one that actually is looking at where and how you're handing out money, and where and to whom. that you're handing out these contracts. So let's see this one get the unanimous vote. You know, we've seen in the last couple of days that there's been a little bit of unethical voting even, and but I've got my eye on it. I'm not going to let you slip those by. Let's go ahead. Thank you.
Arnold Sachs is next.
Good morning. I'd just like to know about this contract task force. Will that include leases that are entered into by the city? And along that line, recently the city council approved a lease for LAWA, Los Angeles World Airports. Will they be under the auspices of anything that's decided? In the fiscal impact statement, it said that LAWA is only bound by the city debt management policies. The city financial policies are not applicable. Will that be included in this contract task force? Also, that the city council recently, I'm discussing an item that came up for city council approval on the 22nd of September, a 20-year lease, and there's no date for the lease starting or when it ends. The information is from 1995 to 2010, that there was a retroactive approval for rental rates. And we have a 20-year lease that the city council approved, but there's no date for when the lease actually starts. I'm glad I got everybody's attention. And I'd like to thank everybody also for their outspoken opinion on MLK. And if I might address the charter school issue that was brought up before.
We can't under our rules. You have to speak specifically to this item once you fill out the cards under
Just
the
one
state
quick
law.
thing.
I'm sorry you can't, sir. But we'd be happy to find out some of that information with the CLA for you. And I do know that the airport, the port, and water and power are now being incorporated into our financial policies for the city. That's moving through committee, so I would recommend you come to the budget committee to check that out. Thank you. But we'll see if we can get answers to any other questions for you. That closes our public hearing for this. Ms. Gruhl is our first speaker, and then Mr. Rosendahl.
Yes, I know, first I want to say what Mr. Smith wanted to amend this to add, you had the same thing, Mr. Rosendahl, add city engineer to the task force as a representative of the Board of, and as well a representative Board of Public Works, and act as the lead agency, right? The Public Works, okay, he gave me a name. Thank you. Same thing. What I did want to ask is that we have had before this council a number of contract review, we had the previous mayor's committee that came forward with a report that was heard before both Commerce and I think by other committees, how this is all going to be worked together. And I don't know if we have a CLA or CAO that could let us know that, because we've had so many reports on contracting, and it's an issue I feel very strongly about, that there is some coordination and some transparency, and I think probably consistency with all of the departments. I don't see anyone here from the CAO or CLA that, I'll look to Sharon is standing there.
You have some...
So Sharon, what I will do, since there's no one, is I will ask, as part of my amendment, as the amendment that Mr. Rosendahl is, that there be a report back or some notification to us as to how this fits in with all of the other contracting requests we have had, audits that have been done, et cetera. So we are not duplicating efforts, both with the proprietary departments and with city departments, because there's been a number of motions, and I just want to make sure that this is accurate. And I would assume, maybe Mr. Rosendahl, that this Public Works being the lead agency, whether or not it's specifically, I don't know if you know the answer to that question, if it's specifically Public Works or not, but I think we have some best practices.
City engineer and the Public Works take the lead.
So if I'll just add that, if you're okay with that as a friendly amendment, to just come back as to how this interrelates with everything else that's been done.
Nobody objects. That'll be accepted as a friendly amendment. Mr. Rosendahl?
That's it.
Okay. Great. Let's open the roll on this, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item 46 was called special for cards from the public.
Zuma Dog is our speaker. Zuma Dog here, going once, going twice. Okay, we'll close the public hearing on that. Let's open the roll on this item if no council members wish to be heard. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 eyes.
Next item, please.
Item 49 was called special for cards from the public.
Okay, Matt Dowd, DS 81.
Yeah, thank you. This is an interesting one. I thought I'd better mention it. First of all, though, we had our public comment. We only see 8 council members here. It's not a quorum, and then the vote just goes through, so that's sleight of hand.
There's a quorum that is here, sir. Just to correct the record on that, and we have our sergeants at arms that have confirmed that.
No,
Please
but they're
continue.
just not here.
No, they're here, sir.
No, in the room.
People are allowed to go to the bathroom and be in the room right behind us as part of chambers. Please
Oh, and
continue.
they get a feed back there?
Please talk to what's at hand. I was correcting just the record for the record.
Perfect. Okay. This is what we like to refer to as a dog and pony. But this one, I just singled this out. I mean, it's a great event, the 3rd annual San Fernando Valley Veterans Day Parade and Community Fair. Single day event, $6,000. But speaking about ethics and these kind of events, I couldn't figure out why Alex Padilla switched his vote last night, but
Could
now
you
I
please
do.
keep your comments to this? Sir?
Okay, here it is. Alex and Greg Smith are working together on this motion, folks. So I just don't think it would have looked good if he defeated Greg Smith's resolution. So that's. But anyway, look, let's hear it for the Veterans Day Parade and Community Fair. It's a great event, but I've just got to point out, ethics will get you reelected, right and wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. That closes our public comment on that one. Anybody wishing to be heard? Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 eyes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
The desk is clear except for the closed session items.
Okay, in accordance with California state law, we will go into closed session, an executive session for legal matters that are before us. We will come back into open session to announce any decisions that have been made that need to be announced publicly, and we thank everybody for their attention. Thank you.
Of $323,814.40, payable at $448 per week for the applicant's life in the workers' comp case entitled Bobby Gardner versus City of LA.
Okay, let's open the roll on that, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 eyes.
That settlement is approved. Next one, please.
On item 53, there's a recommendation for a stipulated award for 70% permanent disability in the amount of $98,095, payable at $170 per week, plus a life pension thereafter of $38.65 per week, payable at the conclusion of permanent disability in the workers' comp case entitled William Larkin versus City of Los Angeles.
Okay, let's open the roll on that settlement, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 eyes.
That is approved as well. Next item.
On item 54, there was a recommendation to continue that matter 1 week.
That has been continued 1 week. Next item.
On item 56, there's a recommendation for settlement in the amount of $158,425.58 in the case entitled Mitchell Kaplan and Marilyn Jones versus City of Los Angeles, and the city attorney will add some more.
Okay.
And in addition, the city has agreed to construct a retaining wall.
Great. Let's open the roll on that settlement, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 eyes.
That is approved. Next item.
On item 57, there's a recommendation for settlement in the amount of $320,000 in the case entitled Mitchell Kaplan. Oh, excuse me, we did. recommendation for settlement in the amount of $320,000 in the case of Ruthie Bernal versus City of Los Angeles.
Okay, Mr. Parks, would you like to?
I'd like to make a verbal motion that we direct the fire department to report to both the Public Safety and the Personnel Committee on voluntary issuance of ID cards after termination and/or retire in lieu of. B, a process to close out personnel investigations subsequent to retirement and/or separation from the department. And C, use of deposition or court testimony as part of a personnel complaint investigation when the employee fails to cooperate.
Thank you. All right. Mr. City Attorney?
And in addition, in this settlement, there's an agreement for a payment of $40,000 to plaintiff by Captain Mayor.
Okay. Let's open the roll on that settlement, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved. And I believe that is our last item.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Those are posted and referred.
That does clear the desk.
Any announcements, colleagues? This would be the time for announcements, if any. Seeing none. Any adjourning motions? If I can ask everybody in council chambers to please rise as we commemorate those who have fallen.
Mr. Garcetti, before we do that, just
Sure.
the Transportation Committee will meet about 10 minutes after council adjourns.
Okay, great. Ms. Hahn?
Thank you. I would like us to adjourn today in memory of Seymour Rosen, who passed away on September 20th at the age of 71. Seymour was a renowned environmental folk art preservationist, and his photographs of novel creations all over the nation helped build appreciation for different forms of art. His photographs have been exhibited in many cities and have inspired countless people to treasure folk art and artists. Seymour has oftentimes been credited with saving our Watts Towers, one of the city's greatest treasures, from destruction in the late 1950s. Once they were saved, he spent months photographing the landmark, and the photos were exhibited at the LA County Museum of Art and have appeared in many other major museums. He continued to work to ensure that the towers were properly maintained and preserved. His contributions will certainly be remembered, and he will be missed. I'd also like to...
Can I just add that Seymour Rosen,
Yeah.
who was born in Chicago and migrated out here, and at 13 years old, his parents gave him a camera, and he had a love of the camera and found his way with that. And he also, Mr. Garcetti, volunteered at Barnsdall Art Gallery. So, Ms. Hahn, if I could second that, or ask that all members with a special person.
Also Police Reserve.
No.
Oh, that's another one?
Not the same Seymour
Okay.
Rosen. He lived in the Fairfax district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Hahn?
I have one more. Ted Viganis, a San Pedro resident, passed away on Monday. Ted was an outstanding criminal lawyer and was very respected by his clients, his peers, as well as by the judges and clerks, and he will be greatly missed by all the people he touched. The rosary for Ted is scheduled for Thursday night at 7 p.m. at McNerney's Mortuary in San Pedro. Funeral services are planned for Friday at 11 a.m. at the Assumption Greek Orthodox Church in Long Beach. Ted is survived by his mother, Sophie, his sister, Nola, his wife, Perry, and his sons, Peter and Christopher. Ted was really a part of the fabric of San Pedro, and he will be greatly missed.
Thank you. Mr. Labange?
Thank you. Members, I think we should adjourn in memory of Ralph Story, one of the greatest of all communicators here in Los Angeles. In 1964, he joined Jerry Dunphy along with Gil Stratton and Bill Keane for the big news. And Ralph Story came with his tales of Ralph Story's Los Angeles later on a special program. He retired up in the Santa Maria, Los Olivos area and lived to be 84 years old. A truly great communicator who told the story of Los Angeles before people really started telling the story of Los Angeles. So I ask that we all adjourn in memory of Ralph Story.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Parks?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd ask that we
Sure.
that we adjourn in memory of Sam Hunter Jr., retired LAPD officer, was born June 10th, 1933 in Mississippi. He moved to Los Angeles in February '57 and joined the police department, retired in '86 as a sergeant, but continued after his retirement to be involved with his community. He was both the Boy Scout and Explorer leader for Newton Station. He coached Little League basketball for Gardena YMCA. He also accepted the position of executive director for the mini 12-step program for a recovery home for alcoholic women. He leaves his wife, Marcine, son, Durrell, and daughter, Cheryl, and 3 grandchildren.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Are there adjourning motions, colleagues? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Thank you. We will next be in session 2 days from today. That is September 29th, 2006, here in City Council chambers in City Hall. This meeting of the Los Angeles City Council is adjourned. Have a great day.